Hello everybody, welcome to the latest edition of the Straight Shootin' series. The date is April 12th, 2005. We are joined by Jim Mitchell, Sinister Minister, James Vandenberg, Darryl Van Horn. Am I missing any?
I think you got it.
All right.
You got them all.
How are you doing today?
Doing fine.
Cool.
Pretty damn impressed with your operation here, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much.
A lot bigger than I thought it was.
All right, starting out, were you a wrestling fan growing up?
There's two parts to that. Yeah, I was when I was a kid, but the way I got introduced to wrestling was kind of interesting. When I was like in kindergarten or first grade, I was hanging out with this really bad kid that had like failed the first grade 2 or 3 times, and I'd go hang around in the neighborhood with him, and he'd get me into trouble. You know, he'd do the shit, and then I'd do the job for it. You know, it'd get blamed on me. So one day we're on the playground, and these bigger kids, I don't know, you know, at the time they may have only been like 12, you know, but they seemed like giants. They told the guy they'd give him a firecracker or a pack of firecrackers if he beat my ass. So I get the shit beaten out of me, and then suddenly they jump on me and they start hollering out these names I've never heard of in my life and putting these strange holds on me, and I'm hearing Chief J Strongbow and, you know, put me in back breakers and suplexing me and shit. You know, I'm that tall, you know, little kid, and had no idea what had just happened to me except that I had a big fucking bloody nose, and you know, I didn't know what this wrestling was or anything. And I got home that night and watching TV. I believe those were the days of UHF TV, and I'm flicking around, and I see, turns out it was Vince McMahon, and I see this guy go, "This is Vince McMahon here with the Grand Wizard of Wrestling," and here's this little fucker in a turban going, "Vincent K. McMahon, you tell that spaghetti bender Bruno Sammartino," some shit. And I was like, what in the fuck? You know, it was like aliens or something. I didn't know what it was. And then I had no memory of wrestling for another few years. It never came up again. And same kind of thing happened once more. Jeff Bailey, Jeff Wilson's his name, from who's a manager in Wildside. Before we became good friends, I had this buddy that would trade comic books with me and whatnot. One day he brings me to his house. "Hey, I've got Spider-Man #1 or some shit like that." And I go in there all excited, and I'm in there about 5 minutes looking at books, and again, 2 big fucking guys come jumping out of the closet, and you hear "Sneak Attack, Pearl Harbor," and then I'm hearing a different rash of names: Johnny Valentine, Bobby Buggers, whatever, this kind of shit going on. And again, the same thing, but it was like a 2-hour beating, non-stop, running my head into the fucking dressers, and they're doing like body presses off of the damn dressers on me again, to beat my ass. And that happened to me a couple of times. I was stupid enough to go back, you know, to trade comic books with this kid who had these thugs hiding in the closet, you know, except maybe the next time they were hiding under the kitchen cabinet, you know, because I was like, I'm not going in that room. Well, he knew I was going to do that, so they snuck out of somewhere else, same shit. And so I was more aware of what wrestling was, still wasn't watching it. And one day, not long after that had happened, I go into this, like a Zippy Mart or a Wawa kind of thing, and there were these bad kids, the ones who used to beat me up, and they hung around with these older thugs, and they were constantly shoplifting. I'm in the store, and I see this guy sticking some shit under his coat, and he gives me one of these. And I walk outside, and he goes, "Here, kid, have some M&Ms or whatever he stole." And I see the guys who beat my ass, and I'm starting to run. And I guess they liked me because I didn't tell on them. So I go back to the guy's house, and Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling is on. And that was the era of Johnny Valentine, right before he went down. So this is like 1975 at this point, and it was when Ric Flair was first starting to come up and whatnot, and I turned into a huge fucking wrestling mark, in the same way that like kids now comparatively get into Ninja Turtles or whatever's big, or that what's that shit called, anime, you know, that, and just obsessed with it. Lost my fucking mind over wrestling. First guy I was into was Dusty Rhodes, so I promptly went back into school and begin beating everyone's ass and cutting Dusty Rhodes promos. I've even got a report card sitting at my mother's house where there's a note on it about my behavior, and it says, your son needs to watch his influences, and he's constantly starting fights, and he won't stay in his chair, and he goes and drops and it had it in quotations, the bionic elbow on people, and keeps calling himself the American Dream. You know, he'd be a straight A student if he would just behave himself. So that became my big ass obsession. That would have been like all of like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, whatever. I mean, big into wrestling up until I guess about the time puberty hit. I started trying to get laid, and I used to do like this backyard wrestling kind of stuff, and not as insane as what they do today, but same thing. You know, we'd have little homemade belts, and we were hurting the shit out of each other. I don't know how somebody didn't get killed. Pile driving people onto concrete, and just brutal stuff. And so I did like a backyard wrestling match in front of some girls, me and a buddy of mine, and they said, you guys look like a couple of fags. So I quit watching it for a few years. And then, I got into music after that, and was a wannabe David Lee Roth for a while. Believe it or not, I used to weigh about 120 pounds and have a head full of hair, And as I was doing the singing, I was a shitty singer. Couldn't carry a tune. I was like a fucking bad karaoke singer, but I looked real cool. And I started to realize that I started getting influenced when I was doing my on-stage raps by the wrestlers I used to listen to when I was a kid. So all of a sudden, I'm becoming a heel frontman. And there was nothing like that. I'm South Carolina's shitty teenage rock band. Everybody else is trying to rip off whoever's on MTV. Well, I'm out there. I'm fucking Ric Flair. I'm whoever, just doing heel promos. And continued to do that until I got accidentally bumped into a couple of wrestlers, and it went on from there. That was the initial thing, my initial background into wrestling. And then I started actively trying to get into it, which was another big long clusterfuck of a story.
Yeah, and then how did you eventually break in?
What I started doing, like most things in my life, I absolutely swindled and lied my way into it. I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Nothing. I had not a clue. So I started writing letters to the promoters, the same kind of shit that like you probably get in the mail now all the time. Hey, I want to be a wrestler. I know everything on earth, and just the worst kind of mark shit you could imagine. Writing letters to promoters, and then I started making like these bathroom tapes or whatever, videotapes of me in front of the kitchen sink or something, cutting these long promos. So I cut this one promo, and my character was going to be the Reverend Jimmy Ray Snake Handler, based on like a con artist evangelist, except I looked like David Lee Roth at the time, or Michael Hayes or something. And I sent this thing to Crockett, I guess it was maybe Turner was running it at the time. This was around 87 or 88. And in this promo, which went like 20 minutes long, I'm going on and using profanity and saying that I'm, in addition to being a pastor of the Church of Wrestling Unification, that I also run an escort service, and that I make porno, and I turned out a Yuletide erotic classic called Yes Vagina, There Is a Santa Claus. It's crazy shit. And I'd sent it to Crockett, and one to this guy named Buzz Tyler, who was an old school wrestler that had opened up a wrestling school. Well, Buzz Tyler called me back. Right here, Jimmy, this is Buzz Tyler. And I totally fucking mark out. I go get my friend Jeff on the other line, and I'm nervous and I can't fucking talk hardly. And he's like, Jimmy, you got the gift of gab. You'd make a good porno star or preacher, but you don't know shit about wrestling. And so he told me to make him another tape, and then he blew me off. And so then I kept doing the same shit. In the meantime, this tape that I'd sent to Gene Anderson called me because he was working in Crockett's office or whatever. He called me up. He says basically the same thing. yeah, kid, you got a good mouth on you, but you got to learn how to work. You know, you don't know what you're going to do, and if we tried to bring you up here right now, you know, these guys would beat your ass. So he turned me on to Nelson Royale, and Grizzly Smith had a school or a little promotion in North Carolina somewhere. Same thing, sent them the tape. Grizzly Smith, that's Jake's dad, isn't it? Called me back. We couldn't put you on the air. You'd have us kicked off every damn station on Earth. There's no way you can do this. So at that point, I started making new tapes, right? Toning down the vaginas and the drug references and all this totally inappropriate bullshit. Still not knowing what I was doing or how to construct a promo. I just happened to have the ability to run my mouth a lot. What was it? Oh, so then I start making these tapes, and just to try to get somebody to call me back, I was doing stupid shit. Like, I'd start the tape, and I'd put like 15 seconds of porno on the beginning of it, so they'd go, oh, wait, fuck, let's keep watching it. Oh, who's this guy? Maybe if we fast forward through it, you know? And, just all these shitty little tricks, you know, trying to get a gig. So then I had a friend who had worked on, did something in a TV station, worked a board at night. He snuck me in there one night, and I made much shorter, because somewhere along the line, these guys that called me back, some of the guys called me back and said, you can't do a promo for 15 minutes. You know, give me 2 minutes. And instead of talking about pussy, talk about Mr. X number 1 and Mr. X number 2 and what you're going to do. That's how I can tell what's happening. So I made one like that. So I send that around. I think I'm a big star now because I have something that looks like it's done in a TV studio. Still no calls, no calls. I wound up singing in a bar, which was to get back to that, and there were these 2 guys that were jobbers for Vince at the time. So this is around 88, I guess. We're back up to 88, and I'm being a total heel in this redneck bar and just shitting on everybody, and there's like another singer in there who's got an attitude, you know, sitting back there with his arms crossed like, who's this fucking guy? I'm just wailing on him, cutting promos left and right, total wrestling shit. And when I get done with this, and I damn near started a riot in the bar that night, took a, what do you call it, like a hanging plant off the ceiling and started swinging it and let go of it and hit the guy in the fucking head, and then all the bikers got hit with potting soil. I mean, it was a big damn mess. When it's done, the wrestlers come back. One of them was named Bubba Kirk. I don't remember the other guy's name, but Bubba Kirk's brother or somebody owned the bar that I was in, and he gave me the old, hey kid, you ought to be in wrestling, you got a good mouth. And then all of a sudden, the next thing I did, again being a clueless mark, I started going out of my way to try to befriend anybody that had anything to do in wrestling, you know. And of course, they're just using my ass. Hey kid, I'll teach you some stuff, let's go out. Hey, why don't you buy me 2 cases of beer? And they'd sit and get fucked up all night, and I wouldn't get shit out of, you know, nothing would come from the wrestling end. Finally, I had heard the guy's name was Ralph Hodges. Through the grapevine, I'd heard there was a wrestler in town. No, I know what it was. I saw him like on Worldwide. Ralph Hodges from Columbia, South Carolina. I got in the phone book and looked up Ralph Hodges, called him up, gave him some big line of bullshit about me being a wrestling manager. And he actually took me to my first indie show. I was not aware there was such a thing as independent wrestling. Had no idea. You know, to me, wrestlers were big guys. They weren't little skinny guys with spandex hanging off their bony ass, you know? So for a couple of years, maybe 3 years at that point, I started going and doing these horrible, horrible indie shows. Just the worst kind of shit. Everybody stealing everybody else's gimmick, or, you know, some of them where people, you know, where they're doing like the false advertising on the posters and whatnot, and you get there and you got a fake Ultimate Warrior who weighs about $150, you know, really bad shit. And then I started this deal where I started trying to work my way up the ladder, networking, you know. If one decent guy happened to be on the show, I'd immediately suck up to his ass, you know, get friendly with him, and then he'd get me to the next level of shitty shows. And it kind of went like that for a while, and then this one guy, I don't remember exactly how I met him. Oh, I do know. He owned this guy named Bob Cannella owned a radio station, and I went in there to do a promo for some big money mark was putting on a huge July 4th show or something. I came in and did an in-studio interview. And the guy got excited, and he promptly sold his little radio station and decided to get into the wrestling business and wanted me to be his booker. Now, I don't know I mean, I think I know everything, but I'm a fucking moron, you know? But he was taking my advice. We started booking shows. And he would put me with whatever the name heel was, you know? So all of a sudden, I think I've got it set. And of course, at the time, just going back to how fucking stupid I was, I would, like, manage Abdullah the Butcher or something, right? And really think that, you know, I could hook up with him down the road, or he's going to take me with him to Japan or some shit, you know? And these guys, you know, they blow smoke up your ass, too. It'd be the same thing. Hey, kid, can you find me some dope or whatever, you know? Oh, will you? Yeah, you know, and you can, if you do this for me, man, I'll take care of you. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen. However, through that guy, I started meeting better wrestlers and guys who knew more what was going on. I started doing some shows for a guy named Greg Price, who wound up being the booker for South Atlantic Pro Wrestling. Sent him some of my horrible indie show work, and he called me up for South Atlantic. And that was the next stop. Actually, that was my first TV. So I was really excited and thinking that I was going to set the world on fire, you know? And I think they stayed in business for 3 tapings after that and bit the dust. Then I did more shitty shows for a little while, and then I'd sent Jim Cornette a tape like 2 years earlier. It was like right when Smoky Mountain started, I sent him a tape. It was like a year and a half later, I got a call from him to come in, and then that was actually the start of me starting to learn, you know, once I started working for Cornette.
When did you learn to, like, start taking bumps and stuff like that?
Oh, well, I was doing that at these shitty indie shows, which is part of why, I mean, I'm half fucking crippled now.
Were you, like, self-taught? Or
yeah, kind of, or being taught by people who didn't know what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah.
Now, I did a couple of times, I went up to Gene Anderson's school, and I'd go there with a carload of guys, you know, the Marks, shitty workers from South Carolina, and Gene Anderson and Nelson Royale and whoever else they had in there would beat the shit out of these guys. Now, they showed me some basic bumps that first day, but then, you know, I'm wanting to get in there and get my ass whipped, and Gene Anderson was like, nah, kid, just sit in a chair. You don't have to do that shit. Fuck them. Yeah. You just watch. You watch what we do, you know? So,
why do you think Gene Anderson took it easy on you?
I don't know. I guess he just saw some spark, or figured that even though I was green and stupid, I had more brains. I guess you could tell I had more brains than the fucking lunkheads I was hanging around with, you know. And I guess, you know, but he was really nice. One time when I was in there, like, Ray Stevens was in there for some reason. He might have been working as an agent for Crockett or something at the time, but he was in there, and they gave me good advice at the time that I don't even remember exactly what it was, just essentially how to be a manager and, you know, don't be running into the ring and doing all kinds of stupid shit, know when to get your heat. Of course, it took me years to learn how to apply that, but that was that.
Yeah. Did you ever want to be a wrestler, or was it always just...
When I was little, I did, but yeah. I quickly realized... Like, you remember I told you that I used to go around and fuck with kids in school, and I actually was a bully when I was little, you know? Until everybody else hit puberty, and I wasn't big, and they were. And I tried to do some wrestling shit to the wrong guy, and he picked me up by my throat like Andre the Giant, slammed me up against the wall. And after that, I pretty much put an end to my ass-kicking theories. I figured there's no way. And I mean, I'm the most inept athlete. I'm not an athlete. I am physically inept. You know, there's few things I do well. Athletics is not one of them. When I was a kid, the only I mean, I'd try out for sports, and I'd get on those city league teams, but it was just so I could wear the cool uniforms, you know? I was like a drama queen. Look at my cool baseball outfit or something, you know, but horribly inept, and I realized that pretty early on, so I decided being a manager was the way to go.
Yeah, so the South Atlantic was just a couple of tapings. It wasn't any kind of a...
Yeah, not much of note there. I mean, I went in there and I was the best fucking promo there. Yeah. You know, and I think that was like the first time see, all this shit was coming together too. Around that time was the first time I saw like the kayfabe sheets. And I really learned more from reading Meltzer and shit in those early years than I did from my road experience. You know, not that he was teaching how to take bumps and shit, but just the psychology stuff. And see, the idiots I was hanging around with didn't know any of that, so suddenly I'm starting to come off like I'm a genius to them because, you know, I'm just parroting what I read. I mean, I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about, but, well, it's just the booking in this was bullshit, and there was only a 2-star match or something, you know, all that sheet speak. And so locally, or within, you know, that little shitty South Carolina clique of wrestlers, they thought I was a bigger deal than I was, and I in turn, of course, started to think that myself. Found out when I got to work for Cornette, totally different. That really was the beginning of me learning.
Was there any kind of hazing or anything like that?
In South Atlantic? Nah, that kind of shit I didn't really run into. And you know, I don't recall there being a lot in the way of ribs in like Smoky Mountain when I went there. A little bit of it, and actually a lot of it in WCW once I got there, but I'm jumping forward.
Yeah. Talk about your arrival to Smoky Mountain, the whole idea of the Mummy Prince Karras.
Jim Cornette called me. This was, and I do this periodically. In fact, I just got done doing it 6 months ago. I get fed up with wrestling and decide that I'm done with it. And I'd done this every once in a while before I went to work for Cornette. And I said, I'm going to give it another 6 months. If I don't get a job, I quit. Well, I finally got to the point where I said, screw it, I'm done. I'm just going to go back to singing in bars. I'll go be a Holiday Inn lounge singer or something. And I that night had just made up my mind I was done with wrestling. I wasn't going to make it. Get a call from Cornette. Again, nervous as shit, didn't know what to say, stumbling all over my words. And he called me up and said, hey, I've got an idea for you. And he goes, you're gonna manage the great Prince Karras, the Mummy. And he's telling me what he wants me to dress up like Abdullah Farouk, you know, with the fez and the glasses and shit. And I was living in South Carolina. Most of those rides were like 6 or 7 hours or something, 5 to 7 hours. I drove there the first time. Again, totally marked out at this point. This is a guy with real TV, and he doesn't have shithouse workers like South Atlantic did, you know. It was like Christmas walking in there, and I ran into Les Thatcher, whom I used to watch as a little kid doing the wraparounds for Mid-Atlantic and stuff. And God, who all was in there? There was well, the Heavenly Bodies were in there. Dirty White Boy was in there.
Rock and Roll Express.
Rock and Roll Express was there. Yeah, I mean, there were enough people that were famous that I was really like blown away. I couldn't believe I was there. But it was a totally different deal. Like, everybody knew what they were doing, and you could see, you know. And so anyhow, he has me come out and start doing some promos. And I'm sure when I got there, they were looking at me like, who's this stupid fucking kid, you know? I got out there, and I would venture to say I probably broke the filth barrier in wrestling. I don't know if you ever heard any of that stuff,
yeah.
Gabe. I came out on television, the first goddamn promo I did, and that's very similar in spirit to the kind of stuff I was sending to the promoters when I was really trying to bullshit my way in.
Do you remember any specific lines or anything from back then?
Yes, several. There were several. The first promo, I had something in there about studying necrophilia and shit. But then as it went on, I had some promos I did in there where I.
There's a lot of kind of anti-religious kind of
stuff.
Yeah,
a lot of shitting on religion. You know, of course, you know, I'm pushing my personal views on Earth to the wrestling audience. I'm using all these big words and just the filthiest shit, telling people I was on there calling the Bible a pack of fairy tales. I was all kinds of filthy sexual references. I was calling the dirty white girl a walking yeast infection. Telling people to quit felching the dogs. Do you even know what felching means? Okay. You know, just all this, anything to fuck with hillbillies, you know, inbred, but not calling them inbred, going far worse than that. The thing was, the actual audience didn't know what the hell I was talking about. It flew straight over their heads. It flew straight over the heads of like the, what do you call it, the syndicators or the whoever would be censoring shit on TV. They didn't have a clue as to what I'm doing. And now at this point, we still had not seen the Mummy. So I did several week build-up, maybe I got in there in September, so I guess I did about a 2-month build-up. For 2 months, I'm out there just saying the most obnoxious, obscene, over-the-top stuff that's probably ever been said to this day on a wrestling show. Well, then the Mummy shows up. Mummy was a guy named Rob Mazie. Big, tall guy, very nice guy. Couldn't work a fucking lick, you know? So Cornette, I'm trying to figure out how they're going to pull this thing off. Cornette gives him like this big rubber, like a zombie mask, right? So he puts that on, then they put him in a running suit, and they start wrapping him with tape and gauze and tape and gauze. And so you got a mummy with little white gloves and fucking sneakers, right? And he's shiny white. He's so, you know, he's just awakened from a 3,000-year slumber, but he's white as snow. So we try to quickly roll him in the dirt a little bit, you know, put baby powder on him so smoke would come off of him or dust when you touched him. He got out there for the first match. I think it was the, what was it called? Thanksgiving Thunder. And that's also my first time really on the road. And I'm thinking, I'm hot shit. I'm excited. I'm going to 4 different towns. And these are like coliseums or civic center, whatever, you know, the kind of place that has a big marquee and stuff, like the one in Nashville or wherever the hell we went. And we'll get out there. And the Mummy, it was Prince Karras against Tim Horner. He came walking out, and people were just half laughing, half stunned laughter, half, how preposterous is this, you know? And he comes out there, and the match was just fucking horrible, you know? And he's wrestling like a mummy. I guess for a mummy, he wrestled as well as you could, you know? I mean, what are you going to do? Move like this? Just kind of stumble around like Friday the 13th guy, you know? But, we pretty much knew that it had tanked at that point, but they were trying to push it. Oh, and the other thing was, from what I understand, it had to be pushed because it was Rick Rubin's idea, the record producer, and he's the guy that wanted a mummy. And I didn't know this until a few months in, but apparently Cornette told him he thought it was a stupid idea, and from what I heard, Rubin was like, well, I don't give a damn. I watched The Mummy in California growing up, and I want a mummy in my wrestling company, you know? And, you know, Cornette had enough sense not to cut promos for a fucking mummy, and probably Tammy didn't want anything to do with it, and Ron White, who was another manager there, all probably said, hands off of this shit. And as has been the story of my career, when you've got some fucking goofy freak or monster, who do you call? Me. So, but let's see, so we put Tim Horner out, then we did a little feud with, I think it was Bobby Blaze, and more filthy promos came from it. And at the time, too, I was marking out for myself because now I'm suddenly getting written about and getting decent reviews and the kayfabe sheets and whatnot. And let's see, we did a little feud with the Dirty White Boy. When that went under, or when that got blown off, I was supposed to be managing, I think it was Kendo the Samurai was the character's name. It was Tim Horner under a ninja suit or something. And then I fucked myself because somebody had called me and given me some gossip about Jim Cornette. And I will leave the personal gossip out, but it also led that this has happened to Jim Cornette, and because of this, Smoky Mountain Wrestling is shutting down. You're not going to have anywhere to work next week. So I fucking panic. And I went and called 2 people that worked for him, going, oh my God, what's happening? Is Cornette going out of business? You know, I was just distraught, thinking my wrestling career was going to come crashing down. And it did. I get a phone call. Daryl Van Horn, Jim Cornette. Who in the fuck do you think you are? You goddamn Mark. Just tore me a new asshole. And, yeah, I mean, just like a good 20 minutes of ripping me a new ass. So when it was all over and done, I wound up telling him the source of the rumor, and he goes, or giving me enough of a hint to figure out who it was. So then he was a little less mad because he, I guess, realized that I wasn't specifically making up stories, nor was I calling everybody else. I just called the people who worked right for him in his office. So he called me back like a week later, and he said, okay, I've decided everything's okay. He goes, now, everybody knows I'm pissed at you, so I can't bring you back on TV right now. So you're going to have to sit home for a month or two, and then I'll bring you back, and we have all these ideas. Well, that kind of coincided with their financial situation going down the shitter. And so, you know, I played phone tag with Cornette back and forth for a while there, and it kept getting put off. I mean, I don't think he was blowing me off. I think he actually had plans, but at that point, they didn't have any fucking money, you know, and it was an unnecessary expense, and then ultimately they bit the dust.
Yeah. What was Cornette's reactions to the promos that you did?
He loved them. And Cornette, what he would do, here's how I formatted promos in those days. A little different than I do it now. I would be sitting at home, dreaming up just crazy, nasty shit, amusing things or shocking things would just come to me. And so I'd have a little list of them, you know, kind of a little mental list. And Cornette would call me a few days before the show and say, Daryl Van Horn, here's what you're talking about. You got Dirty White Boy on April 12th and whatever. And you got 2 minutes to do it, so just do your shit. Okay, great, that'll work. And so I would take the money points that needed to be made, which was usually just 2 or 3 bullet points, and then I would weave my filth all around it. And but he loved them. And he let me get away with saying anything. The only time I ever got censored was I was doing color commentary, and I made some comment while Prince Karras was in the ring wrestling that if the Rock and Roll Express wanted to take a poke at him or whatever, he was going to kick Ricky Morton's ass, and then he was going to pull out Robert Gibson's one good eye and make him give him a wink job. That's the only time I ever got beeped. It was, and make him give him a beep, and then the thing went on. But you know, he wasn't mad about it, and he laughed. He was a lot of fun to work for, and I really wish I could have worked under him more. You know, I look back at it now, and like so many things I ever fuck up, I wish I would have just kept my fucking mouth shut. That would have been the best experience to learn right under him, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, I fucked it up, but it was a great learning experience. It was the first time I was around real wrestlers, you know, and got a sense for how things are done, you know, so.
Was it at this point that you really started learning timing and working at ringside and that kind of stuff? And who was the most helpful in teaching you?
Well, 2 things there. First of all, before I got to Smoky Mountain, I had gotten real serious about watching tapes, studying. You know, at this point now I'm reading kayfabe sheets and I'm kind of knowing what to look at. So again, I think I know more than I do, but I'm getting very studious about what I'm doing. So I would sit and I would study Bobby Heenan, I would study J.J. Dillon, anything I could get my hands on, any of the managers that I liked, and I would pay special attention to the way they did things. They weren't just, like when I was doing indie shows, before I was just running all around the ring like a fucking moron and banging on the mat for no reason and look at me kind of stuff, right? Well, once I paid attention to other shitty indie managers doing it, I realized the only difference between me and them is that I know how to talk, you know? So I wanted to learn what I was doing wrong. So I started really paying attention to what Bobby Heenan did. And no, he didn't have to be the center of attention. When he moved, it was like a snake striking. There was a reason for it. And I would watch the way he walked. He wasn't just pacing back and forth. If he moved from point A to point B, he did it with deliberation, you know? It wasn't just jumping up and down and being a fucking cheerleader. So, I checked data, I studied tapes like hell, and I got to where I was really pretty good at ringside, but when I got to Smokey, the Mummy didn't need interference, you know? And I kind of lost my mojo for a while, you know, like I forgot the stuff I'd learned because all I had to do was really stand there. I never really had any spots to do, you know, and but I really just kept studying over time. After I left there, I tried to get my mojo back, and I did get my ringside shit back better when I went to Atlanta. But it's a lot of tape studying, I guess. I never really had anybody sit with me and say, here's how you do ringside stuff, to answer your question.
Yeah. Was there anybody in Smokey that you didn't like to work with? Like maybe were some of the veterans looking down on you?
No, I could be delusional, and Jimmy, if you're watching this, maybe you can let me know. I think I was pretty well liked, and I think they definitely all respected my mouth, you know, because I mean they were constantly and they could have been blowing smoke up my ass, but they were constantly coming up to me with, why in the hell aren't you working for Dusty in Atlanta? God, you need to be in New York with that mouth of yours, you know. It felt good, you know. They may have been lying. I don't think they were. I mean, I generally was. The only person who didn't like me up there was Tammy at first. I got there, and of course, like I told you, every promo's full of filth and blasphemy and whatnot. And Tammy, who I was not impressed with at the time as a performer, she was beautiful, but she seemed a little wooden. Like her promo delivery was like she was remembering her lines, you know, instead of coming out with, and I'm going to kick your ass, it was more like, and then I'm going to kick your ass. But, you know, I mean, so she was trying to rehearse it and run over it in her mind. So we didn't really speak, and she came up to me one day and just said, Daryl Van Horn, I want you to know you're the most disgusting human being I've ever met in my life. I'm like, whoa. You know, but and then she became friendly with me after that. But took a couple of months, and but other than that, no. I mean, I didn't have heat with anybody. I think I was generally well liked and got along and I was friendly, and always came in with some crazy fucking story to tell. You know, I've only kind of stopped being this way in the last few years since I've mellowed, but I was always getting into some kind of strange, perverse comedy story, you know. It's always had stories from the road to come back and tell. Oh, one other thing from Smoky Mountain I wanted to bring up. It was Christmas Chaos. He brings in Dick Murdoch and assigns me to be his driver. Now I'm totally marked out here too. I mean, Dick Murdoch, I watched him when I was a kid, and here's Captain Redneck, and we're going to ride around, and I'm going to be buddies with Captain Redneck. So me and my buddy Jeff Bailey from the Wild Side, he drove up because I had a piece of shit car, and so my friends were always driving me to the shows, and they'd get to hang around with the wrestlers. I'm thinking we're going to have this great time driving for 4 days. Well, Dick Murdoch just ribbed me relentlessly. Just beat me up from the front seat. Just verbally beat me up. And I couldn't take it. I mean, I was just heartbroken, and I started trying to think, how do I get rid of this motherfucker? I got to get Captain Redneck out of my fucking car, you know? And he came, this is stupid. There was a sandwich that had been sitting in the back of that car since the previous TV taping, an old ham sandwich. Oh. And I'm thinking, and Dick Murdoch calls my room, hey, Bubby, what you got? Let's get something to eat. What you got in that picnic basket back there? And I said, let me call you back. And a light bulb went off in my head. I looked at Jeff. I go, I can give this motherfucker food poisoning, and he won't be able to finish the tour, and then I won't have to be humiliated by him anymore. I give Murdoch this fucking tainted meat, a piece of ham that's been sitting 3 weeks at least. He picked it up. Hey, Bubby, give me some white bread there. Slap of mustard. And he sat there and ate that rancid, rotten fucking meat. Didn't sell it all. Ate the whole damn thing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's over. Now, while I'm in the car with him, I'm trying to discuss real serious wrestling things. And I'm just being a mark and asking him technical questions. He's just blowing me off the whole time. So I finally said, screw it. And like it was the night of the last show, I said, fuck this. I just got drunk. Got totally shit-faced in the car. And since I figured Dick Murdoch wasn't going to be my wrestling buddy, I'm just going to start telling all these stories about rats and groupies and all the bizarre shit I used to do. And he popped. He popped huge. I mean, and he wanted to hear more stories. And I'm just telling these crazy, groupie stories from the old days when I was a singer and whatnot. And then he opened up. And then I sat up that night with him in that room, him and my friend, and got probably the best wrestling education in one night that I had ever gotten up to that point. He got really friendly, and then suddenly, then we could discuss wrestling. And I don't remember specific things he told me, but I mean, it was just very genuine and taking his time to make me understand things. And when he was getting ready to leave, I guess it was the nicest compliment I'd been paid at that point, up to that point. He said, you guys, if I ran a territory, I'd bring you in just for morale, And I was, Captain Redneck likes me now. And then that was damn near the end of my Smoky Mountain run, I think.
That's cool. Were you surprised when you found out that Smoky went out of business?
Yeah, I was shattered. I was shattered. You know, and I didn't know anything about the money situation or anything at the time, so I mean, I'm clueless, you know. You were reading all this shit about Cornette going crazy and beating people's cars up with baseball bats and shit, which led into that thing I told you I got in trouble for. I just figured Cornette's gone off the deep end, and again, maybe he's just pissed off and he's going to close it down. I had no idea that they were having money problems and whatnot at the time, so I was shocked and heartbroken.
Did you see any kind of noticeable change in Cornette's demeanor from when you first entered Smokey to right at the end?
No, he was always consistent with me. But, I mean, he was never a hothead to me, ever. And even one time, another story about me being a fucking idiot, I went on that first 4-day tour, right? Now, I had always heard that when you do wrestling on TV, you get paid chicken shit money for television, you know? And you get paid $7,500 for television, but on the road you make that real money. So I load up and I go on that first tour, and I'm expecting, well, you know, I've been getting like $100 for TV. I'm going to make $300, $400, $500 now. I'm thinking I'm going to come back from this thing with $2,000 or $3,000. Well, on the night that I got paid, I got a check for like $300, which was $75 a night, and I freaked because first of all, I didn't have it. There was no way to cash it. I didn't have any fucking money because I was thinking I was going to get a big fucking envelope. So, like a fucking dope, I take Cornette in a stall, and I'm like, Cornette, I'm losing my ass. How good can you pay me this shit? And he's going, Daryl, damn it. He goes, just keep doing your shit, and I'm going to be able to get you into New York because you just got to learn. Man, just be calm, stick with me. But I mean, he wasn't mad. I mean, were I Cornette, I would have just slapped me. I said, get the fuck out of here. I'll give you an opportunity to bitch about that. But he didn't. I mean, he never was uncool to me. Now, I saw him throw some temper tantrums. That son of a bitch. Well, you know him. You've seen him. He's one of the masters. When I had Canyon in there with me, Canyon just went and ran and hid. Somebody had run the audio or something through a boom box, and something fucked up with it, and Cornette went berserk and started beating it with the damn tennis racket and kicking it and throwing it and, you know, throwing pieces of it at whoever was responsible for it, and Canyon just like kind of scurried off and ran. And I mean, you'd see him blow up on people, but he never did it to me.
Yep.
Except for when he called me and fired me.
Then you had a few months off, and then it was into WCW, right?
Oh, God, I might have had 2 years off
from 2 years, okay.
Actively from being on TV, yeah. Because I think...
Had you given up on wrestling at that point?
I had gotten to that point again. Now, in the meantime, Canyon and I, Chris Canyon, became good buddies. I'd met him, and he was green as a leprechaun's dick. He was, I think he'd worked maybe 4 matches, and you could tell that he was really, really athletically gifted, but he just was clueless, like we all are when we start. I mean, he just didn't know he was working the left side and didn't know how to lock up right. I think I had to show him how to lock up. And why I was showing him how to lock up, I don't fucking know. Like, I'm qualified. But, ran around and did indies with Canyon, I guess, for about 1.5 years. And then he got a job with WCW. Well, no, actually, first he started, I think he went to ECW briefly, then he went to Memphis, hung out there for a while, and then he pretty much just camped out in Atlanta until they let him do some jobber work. And in the meantime, he wound up getting hired for like one of those little $400 a week deals as Men at Work, I believe they were called. And of course, I'm hounding his ass the whole time. Man, you need a manager, man. Come on, man, get me in, get me a job. And Canyon, I believe, was fucking crazy enough to go to Kevin Sullivan several times a month. Get my buddy a job. We don't need no managers, you know. And yeah, prior to WCW, it was just running around and doing indies for a while. Okay. I guess that leads into your question about WCW.
Yep, you might as well take us to the beginning of WCW for you.
Okay, so I'm busting Canyon's balls about how to get a gig. And I got back to the point where I'd given up and was ready to quit, so I was just going to lay back. I was visiting Canyon in Georgia. At this point, the Blood Runs Cold thing was starting
the vignettes
to be put together. Yeah. They were running the stuff with Glacier. Then they hired Canyon, and they sat those guys home for like 1 year to train and get ready for this gimmick, you know? And I was visiting Canyon in Atlanta, sitting up with him drinking wine, and about 1:30 in the morning, we get a call from Dallas Page. He says, yo, Canyon, That friend of yours, fucking manager. Look, you guys are going to need a manager. Nobody wants to do it. Why don't you bring him over tomorrow and let me see what he can do. Have him make a tape tonight. So here I am, shit-faced drunk. We drank, those cheap-ass boxes of wine. We drank like 3 fucking boxes of wine. And then I tried to put together a promo for Blood Runs Cold, shit-faced drunk. And we go to Dallas's house. Now I'm totally marked out. Here, all of a sudden I'm walking into this big ass house. Here's Dallas Page, who at the time I did not have a high opinion of as a performer. He was just barely out of the blowing bubble gum and smoking cigar stage. But went in there and he looked at the tape and critiqued it properly, all the things I was doing wrong. And then he said, well, let's make another one. So we sat down and made another one. And he was the first guy that kind of put me onto the slow, deliberate, evil delivery. Whereas before I was kind of a motor mouth, people were always comparing me to Paulie or Cornette. And we were different. All 3 of us had different styles, but I could see where people would say that because I was a southern-sounding motor mouth, So Dallas, very painstakingly, he took the concept that I had for the character and had me go through this real elaborately, I don't even know how to describe it, just the evil and Glacier, and here's what you're gonna do. And he's like, and when you say that you're opening Pandora's box, don't just say it, say I have opened Pandora's box and all that kind of shit, So he produced this promo and took it over to Eric Bischoff's house. And how are you doing on time? Okay. Takes it over to Bischoff's house. Now at this point, I'm nervous as hell. I didn't go there expecting to get a job to begin with. I didn't expect Dallas Page to call me in the middle of the night when I was drunk. So Page comes walking back in the room. He's over there about 30 minutes. Comes walking back in, and he goes, hey, kid, you might want to send this to New York. And he tossed it at me, and I'm like, oh, shit. Here we go again. Charlie Brown got the football yanked out from under him again. He goes, yeah, by the way, you got the job. I'm like, what? You're shitting me. Nah, Eric saw it. He loves it. He fucking loved it. And man, I went in the bathroom and started crying. It was like Miss America. I just fucking tears jettisoning out of my eyes, put the tiara on my head, I couldn't believe it. Because WCW, not only was it TV and kind of the TV I essentially grew up on, it was the hot TV at the time. And Bischoff came over and told me he liked my stuff. He burped burritos in my face for a few minutes. But he told me, he said, don't quit your job. Well, of course, I was going to quit my shitty day job that I had at the time. And just told me to come in and meet him in a few weeks, and we'd sit down and discuss the deal. And so in the meantime, I'm really revved up, thinking the world's going to be on fire because all I'm hearing is Blood Runs Cold is the hot shit. It's going to, it's going to be the deal. And when I went to have my meeting with Bischoff, turned out not to be the case. Came in and he, like 3 weeks later, I went into his office. First thing he says is, well, we've already dropped the ball on this about 4 times, so what you might want to do, don't sell your house, don't do anything crazy like that, because it's probably not going to work. I'm like, great. My first, I'm getting signed, and he's telling me I'm doomed, before it even starts. So,
why didn't they think it was going to work?
Well, because the NWO had taken off, and suddenly they went from Dungeon of Doom cartoony kind of shit and vignettes with sailboats blowing up and all that. And that's kind of the way I think Blood Runs Cold would have been set up. It was supposed to be, it was some sort of rip-off of like Masters of the Universe, because Bischoff wanted to market toys to kids and whatnot. Which I guess would have worked, but they spent a shitload of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, getting guys to design the characters, although they had nobody to play them. They were getting filled as the months went by. And somewhere in there, though, the whole NWO thing started with Hall and Nash and Hogan, and I guess Bischoff decided, and rightly so, that was the direction to go into. Fuck cartoony wrestling, now we're going to be real, and people are going to use their real names and that sort of thing. And that pretty much spelled the... Well, I mean, it lasted for a while, but, you know, I knew going in that it was toast.
Yeah.
I still had a hell of a good time.
What were your first impressions of the WCW locker room?
I liked it. And now, everybody really was at that time. This was late 96, early 97. Everybody was pretty happy. Now, that changed as the years went on there. But
this is when WCW was on top, too.
yeah,
right?
they were on top, and everybody was making money. I wouldn't be surprised if the guys who put the ring up made $100,000. I mean, everybody was making good money, and everybody was happy. I mean, it seemed really... Everybody was pretty damn friendly, and there wasn't much in the way of cliques, if memory serves me correctly. At least not like, you know, different political factions. I mean, you had the Bookers, they kind of stayed to themselves, and then like the Hall and Nash guys were a little bit more, I mean, they were friendly to everybody, but they were a little bit more to themselves. Everybody else was just like social butterflies, from what I recall.
Yeah. Who was booking at that time or giving you your instructions?
Sullivan.
Okay.
Sullivan.
Did he like the gimmick?
No, Sullivan hated the gimmick. He wanted nothing to do with it. And the first day I go in there to do a promo. Now, my name at the time is Daryl Van Horn, or had been since I'd started. I get in there, and I'm all excited to meet Kevin Sullivan. Well, actually, the night before my first promo, they did like a taping, a big show at the Omni. Canyon introduces me to Sullivan, and he's just like glaring at me, you know? And he's like, oh, Kevin, here's my friend Daryl Van Horn. First thing out of his mouth, you gotta change that name. I'm like, what? No, I'm Daryl Van... You gotta change the name. Yeah, but everything's a shoot now. Just call yourself Jimmy Mitchell. Everything's a shoot. I go back to Canyon's apartment that night thinking, fuck, Jimmy Mitchell? What kind of damn name is that for the evil wrestling manager? And we got there the next day for the promo. It was going to be my first interview on TV, a big national TV. And we pretty much, you know, everything with Blood Runs Cold at that point was very rehearsed. They wanted, and in fact, Dallas Page was in charge of us. He was like our babysitter. He was given the task of making sure everybody did what they were supposed to do, and a lot of it was kind of on his shoulders, too. Because again, from what I understood, Sullivan wanted nothing to do with it. So we get there for the TV taping, and I do the promo in one take, but right before it starts, Sullivan, whom I'd met in Smoky Mountain, and was really friendly to me then, comes walking up to me, and it looks like he wants to fucking kill me. And he walks up and he goes, Jimmy, I'm going to tell you something right now. You got, first of all, it goes, you got to change that name. You got a name? You got a name yet? And off the top of my head, I went, James Vandenberg, you know, which I believe was the name of an 80s metal band or something that was floating around in the back of my head. But it sounded regal enough, you know. So then he goes, okay, now here's the deal. You're going to go do that promo with Lee Marshall, but I'm going to tell you right now, and this comes straight from the top, no voodoo, no black magic, no hocus pocus, no crazy stuff, no Van Horn, and no Jack Nicholson. Now do your fucking promo. And I'm like, oh shit. You know, I've just had to change my name, and now you're throwing my whole gimmick out the fucking door. You know? And I got there and did the promo. The verbiage was good, especially for what, you know, the stupid fucking gimmick I had to deal with. But and this is one of those things that you learn as you get older and wiser and go back and look at what you did. I was a big J.J. Dillon fan, right? So I'm sitting there while Lee Marshall's doing the lead-in, just kind of gesticulating like J.J. Dillon, you know, that kind of shit. And I'm sitting there blinking my eyes because I think I remember seeing somewhere J.J. would take his glasses off and kind of, well, it looked like shit on fucking TV. I looked nervous. I mean, I was nervous, but I wouldn't have been doing that had I like done one run through and seen it. But we did the interview, and the Mortis character shows up, and the whole story behind it. Well, see, nobody gave Mortis a background. I essentially came up with it. The whole concept of him being like some kind of creature from another planet, I knew was fucking stupid, and I've already, having been through a mummy, I didn't want to do that. So I came up with the concept of him being a like a Muay Thai fighter, and the underground pits of Malaysia and Singapore. Oh, and that was the other, as soon as I get done with the promo, Sullivan's like, great, he's from everywhere I am. You know? I'm going, oh, great, could I get any more fucking heat if I tried? So I came up with that idea, and then that I would be the collector of weird objects and oddities, because I've always been a mark for that kind of shit. Like when I was a kid, I grew up on stuff like Night Gallery and the Twilight Zone, and I always liked the guy who came in and set the story up, you know, or like the Crypt Keeper from Tales from the Crypt, which I became more of in ECW. But you know, I was always a big mark for that kind of stuff, and a mark for, there used to be a magazine out called Famous Monsters of Filmland when I was a kid. Every cover had the guy glowering, Vincent Price or Bela Lugosi or somebody. So I incorporated all that shit into my character. And then, as we started doing the shows, turned out they weren't going to let me talk. I did that one interview. In fact, I think that was the only interview I did for the initial Blood Runs Cold thing. They would not put my ass back on the mic after that, until, you know, like Mortis and Wrath moved into the next feud they went into. But it was kind of disheartening that they wouldn't let me talk. So what I did, I started really hamming up the evil stuff. So I'd come walking out to the ring like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. You may remember, always had that silly fucking face. That, because it was like, otherwise I looked like Todd Gordon walking to the ring at the time, you know. I mean, I really didn't have a discernible look like I have now, so I had to ham it up and do it facially instead of just being able to look cool because of the way I'm made up or whatever. But let's see, where were we from that? Yeah, so we go in to do the first Blood Runs Cold thing. Pretty much looked like shit. It looked like a very well choreographed, like a bunch of guys. I think Meltzer even said when I read his review of it, it looked like two guys that spent a year in a gym practicing karate moves. You know. And in the meantime, you know, you can tell Sullivan doesn't want anything to do with it. He'd be giving us instructions, and he'd be like, "Yo, I don't, you know, I'm not a karate guy. I don't know what a karate guy would do. You know, I don't understand this. But you know, if I were you, I wouldn't be doing that crazy Mexican shit you want to do. Or, you know, if you're a fighter, why don't you pluck his eye out and shit? You know." And in Canyon at the time, and Canyon had heat with Sullivan all the time too, because he would come up with a great idea, or you know, some move he wanted to do, and Sullivan was big on, no, it looks stupid, don't do it. And Canyon would try to sneak a weave way in and out and try to go through somebody else, you know. Oh, well, he said I could, you know. And that didn't help our situation either. And so, let's see, the Blood Runs Cold thing, the actual Glacier portion of it went to shit. Then they let us do like a mid-card feud with some of the luchadors. They were going to have a deal where Mortis was going to unmask all of the luchadors. Now, and in the meantime, Canyon is absolutely furious. Brian Clark, or Wrath as he was at the time, he was kind of disgusted with the way it was, because we thought we were going to get all these wins and we're getting jobbed out on TV every week. Now, I, of course, didn't particularly give a shit, because I was on the road and I was making money and I was fucking everything that wasn't nailed down, you know? Which leads to an interesting road story. Canyon is so frustrated at this point at his lack of push, or what he perceived as the level of push he should have, that we'd go out drinking, you know, all the wrestlers would go to the bar, and he'd get fucked up and just start wailing on me, just beat the shit out of me, you know. Shut up, Vandenberg! Boom, 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 boom. And then I wouldn't sell, you know. You motherfucker! He'd do it again. And I'm sitting there like, Canyon's like my dearest friend in the world. I couldn't figure out what the fuck was wrong with him. Why is he snapping on me and just bitch slapping me all the time, you know? And it started to get out of hand, where people are like, what the hell's wrong with you two guys? I'm like, I don't fucking know. I haven't done anything. He's my buddy. I don't know what the hell he's mad about. So, one night, same thing happens again. And he's just pissed off over nothing. Like my car wouldn't start or something. The starter was messed up on it. Drive home and he goes berserk. And he destroys my car. Whatever, I insulted him in some way when he got out. I can't believe you'd say that to me, you motherfucker. And he gets out, jumps up and down on the hood of my car, kicked the windows out, caved in the fucking, what do you call them, the quarter panels, knocked every light out. Now this is 3, 4 o'clock in the morning and we are shit-faced drunk. So I've got a car. I can't stay at Canyons now because we've just had a big blow up and he has destroyed my car. And I drive it home like a dumbass, 4 o'clock in the morning, no lights, totally destroyed, and totally drunk. At that point, I'm like, okay, well, fuck you, Canyon. I'll fix your little red wagon. So, I've always been a big gun mark. Big gun mark. Lots of firearms. We went traveling. We went to South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. In the meantime, Kenyon doesn't know I have this gun, but I've already decided if the motherfucker hits me again, I'm gonna stick it in his mouth. This is it. You're too fucking big and I'm too little and fucking fat and out of shape. You don't beat my ass for no reason. I will scare you. So, Kenyon and I have this plan that we're gonna screw a rat and videotape it. Now, I had a rather well-deserved reputation at the time for home porn, but not the kind of boring home porn where somebody goes, hey man, watch me fuck this hot chick, man, and then there's a static camera shot, and okay, yeah, you're screwing her, yeah, great, okay, you're screwing her, does anything good happen? I would do like comedy porn. It was always something funny, like one time I screwed a fat black Catholic lesbian who I deemed Abdullah the Butch. You know, that was just for comedy value, you know? Not like I'm screwing an elephant or something, and all the boys would laugh at it. You know, it wasn't demeaning or anything, but you know, so I did a lot of that kind of shit just to get a pop out of the boys, you know? Some people kick ass, some people take drugs. I made funny home porn. So me and Canyon were gonna screw this girl, videotape it. We were gonna secretly do it and then like debut it at one of his pay-per-view parties that he had every month. And I think he was gonna wear the Mortis suit or something. And we were gonna be doing like wrestling, like we were working an angle with her, you know, while we were screwing her. Well, the show's over and Mortis and Wrath take off to the bar. And I'm waiting around, and I call him, hey, I found the rat, I got a rat, get your ass over here, let's go to work. He wouldn't show up, he's too busy drinking and hanging out with people at some country bar with Brian Clark. So, me and my friend Jeff, the old guy who introduced me to wrestling, he's there. We said, fuck it, let's get to work. And we dressed the girl in the Mortis outfit. And you know he had that stick with the skeleton on it? Well, it was stuck places better imagined than said, but there was a lot of going on. And we had her cutting promos on all the boys, you know. They'd be like, Johnny's, and she's wearing a Mortis mask, right? And you know, Mortis used to do that thing. We got this rat in there doing this in a room with like 75 beer cans all over it. You know, you can tell it's just decadence, you know. And she'd be like, Johnny Swinger, you're an ass. By the way, here's my ass. You know, so you know, I think I've got this funny little thing that Canyon's gonna pop for. He comes back. Where's the rat? She's gone. You know, it's 6 in the morning. You know, we've been working on the rat for 6 hours, but I got a great tape. What do you mean you got a great tape? Pulled it out, showed it to him. Oh my God. Oh my God. You motherfucker! You put that mask on that scuzzy, nasty, filthy, slimy fucking whore! You motherfucker! And my stick! You took my stick and put it! You motherfucker! And he's going berserk. And Brian Clark's laughing his ass off. The other people who are watching it are laughing. But thinking, come on, man, calm down. This is funny. I can't wear this mask anymore. And I'm not touching this fucking pole, you know? And so the next morning, he's really fucking pissed. And he is looking for an excuse to kick my ass. Well, I know this. So I take my .45 and I stick it under the pillow on my bed. Whatever, we're antagonizing one another, and he just finally comes at me. And I'm thinking, you know, if he comes at me, I'm going to slowly pull the pillow up and go, don't do that. Didn't work out that way. He comes charging at me with like an old school Ricky Steamboat double thrust. And this is the single most athletic thing I've ever done in my fucking life. It was like crouching tiger, hidden whatever, you know, a John Woo move. He hits me, so there's like 2 beds or whatever, right? He comes across here and hits me with like this double thrust. I went flying over. I cut a backwards flip just from the inertia of what he did. Somehow flew over, landed on my feet, and in one single move, bounced back up, slid across the fucking bed, hand under the pillow, and came up with the gun. Oh, shit. Brian Clark sees that, and he hides under the fucking table. Canyon's like, you motherfucker, is that a fucking gun? Like, that's it. I'm not taking any more ass whippings. You're not gonna do this shit to me anymore. If you fucking hit me again, I'm gonna fucking kill you. And like I turned my head for a second to listen to something Clark was saying. Canyon grabs my hair. So now here's two jerk-offs sitting in a hotel room, one of whom has a loaded fucking 45. So Canyon's got me by the hair. I'm standing on the bed, but he's down, holding me by the hair, and I got a gun here, and he's like, let go of my fucking hair, put the fucking gun down, let go of my hair, put the fucking gun down. It's like fucking Reservoir Dogs. And he finally, this is like really tense for a minute, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put the fucking gun down. And I go to put it under my knee, you know, so I can grab it again, let go of my hair. And this is like, it probably took 2 minutes, but it felt like an hour of tension. And I'm like, okay, I'm putting the gun right here. Let go of my fucking hair. I got 2 pieces of hair on my head and you're fucking pulling them out. And so then he cools off for a minute. You motherfucker, I can't fucking believe you. You would fucking shoot me. Fuck you. Oh, fuck you. You shouldn't be kicking my ass. So Brian Clark goes, let's just get out of the room. Let's just go cool off. Everybody cool the fuck out. You know, well, fuck him. Well, no, fuck him. So we go to walk out of the room, and I hear the door snap, close behind us. And I went, oh, fuck, I left my gun in the room. Oh, no. I'm going, Wrath, I'm going to come back in, and he's going to fucking kill me. He is going to fucking kill me. He is going to shoot me or something. Either way, I don't have any defense now. I'm dead. So we come back to the room about an hour later. I don't see hide nor hair of my gun. I'm assuming he like threw it in the bushes or something at the time. But the whole room is destroyed. The beds or mattresses are all up against the wall, and he didn't say anything to me. He looks a little shell-shocked. But I figured he just got mad and destroyed the room. So later that night, he told me that when we left, he picked the fucking gun up because he didn't know if it was real or not. He picked it up and he's looking at it, and it went bang! Shot a hole through the fucking bed. And he's going, oh, and it went off, and I saw stars, and I couldn't hear, and I was blind. Oh, you motherfucker, I didn't know what to do. I thought I killed somebody. So he threw all the bedding up against the wall to try to cover the evidence, you know. Turned out nobody got killed. But, of course, and after that, we never had another fight, and we've been nothing but the dearest, sweetest of friends ever since. But that was the tale of me and Canyon blowing up on the road. So yeah, back to Blood Runs Cold, and the last thing we did...
It's going to be tough to follow up that story now.
You should hear some of my fucking rat stories from Universal. Yeah, okay, before we get to the end of Blood Runs Cold, you pass me that Coke. Got the heater on?
Yeah, we don't have the AC on.
Okay,
that's why it picks up.
No problem.
Yeah.
I'm not sweating oxy out, everybody. Okay?
There's no AC on for the record.
Okay. Where was I? Yeah, so that was another big first for me. When we go to Universal, we just go for like 2 weeks at a time for the tapings. First time I went down, you know, I was still feeling my way around, and I noticed there were like some real rats. Not like old shitty kind of washed up rats like you get on the indie circuit. These were the real deal. There was a place we used to go to called Pineapple Pete's. Real shithole of a bar. It smelled like piss and vomit. Smelled like the ECW arena, you know. But all the rats were there. And you'd see them sitting there. It was like crocodiles on the Nile waiting on wildebeest to come down, just waiting on the boys every 2 weeks. We'd get done with tape and we'd walk in there and there'd be 40 rats in the bar just waiting to see who they could get. Well, the second time I went down, I decided, well, I'm going to get some of this. And I lost my fucking mind on rats. So everybody else would be out getting drunk or whatever they did. I'd just run off with rat after rat after rat. I'd go through 4 or 5 of them in a damn day. I called that the Hide Your Sheep tour because I was insane. And I wound up staying up one time. God, it was several days, like 5 or 6 days I didn't get any sleep. Because we'd go to work, then I'd stay out fucking rats all night, and I'd go, okay, when we come home from taping this morning, I'm going to go to sleep. Well, I'd get ready to go to sleep, and some other rat would call or knock on the door. Hey, Edwina said I should come see you. He says you're fun. Okay, let's do it again. So I just wasn't getting any sleep. I got the TV taping, and then, like, it was becoming a running joke. Pez Watley going, damn boy, you don't get no sleep. You gotta go to sleep. You gonna crash and burn. We got to a TV taping after I'd been up several days, and at this point, I'm starting to, like, hear voices and stuff. You know, I'm like, total, whatever happens when you don't sleep was making me fucking nuts. And we got to Universal, and we're going to walk out for our big grand, you know, Mortis and Wrath entrance. We go walking out, and I'm so out of it, I stepped off of the stage. When I stepped off of the stage, I grabbed Mortis in front of me and yanked his cape off. He falls down. He goes forward into Brian Clark like dominoes. His helmet goes flying off. I mean, we look like the 3 fucking Stooges. And we came back, and of course, Pez was laughing his ass off. I told you, you better go to sleep. So when I'm assuming that match never aired. It was stupid. So anyhow, last thing that happened, they put us in a program with Ming and Barbarian, which was actually a lot of fun. Those guys were stiff. And the first time my guys fought them, they beat the shit out of them. And they were like scared of them. You know, Ming would be like, hey, I come at you, you come back at me. If all you do is sell, I'm going to keep beating on you. You fucking fight me back. And once they got to where they weren't scared of them anymore, they had some great brawls. Just, you know, 4 big guys beating the shit out of each other. It was a lot of fun. And then Raven came in. I first met Raven, I didn't like him. He was obnoxious, and I think it's safe to say, it's no secret at the time, he was a fucking junkie and a pain in the ass. And he came up with the idea to take Mortis, which I didn't like, obviously, because that put me out of a job. So I wound up, after that, I sat home for probably close to a year. Canyon went on to actually get a good little run with Raven's Nest or Raven's Flock or whatever it was called. And let's see what happened then. So in between, I decided, you know, I'm still under contract. I'd never made any money in my life before that, and I'm scared as hell I'm going to get fired. Dallas Page keeps telling me, shut up, don't call the office. You're going to get fired. Don't let them know you're still getting paid, you know. Which, you know, as a guy, you know, you want to perform, it's kind of tough. I mean, you're making the mailbox money, and that's great. But, you know, I'm in this shit because I like it, you know, and I want to go out and perform. So I came up with an idea to do like a editorial piece, like a heel Andy Rooney or something called The Auditorium. And pitched the idea. I went to the studio and I made like a demo of it, pitched the idea, and Bischoff liked it. In fact, Bischoff at the time said he didn't realize I was that good, because frankly he hadn't really heard me talk after that first interview. And I had high hopes for it, but it lasted. And I said, you know, let's put it on Saturday Night Show. That show sucks anyway, just something different. You got a guy who can talk. And, you know, I was doing like these worked promos, you know. Whereas, and this is where I was wrong too, because they're doing everything like it's half shoot, and I'm doing these pieces like I'm writing for Bill Apter's mag. You know, I was doing it real kayfabery, and I think that lasted maybe 5 or 6 weeks. They just quit bringing me in, and I guess I was there like 3 years, and right before my contract ran out on the 3rd year, before that, Jimmy Hart had been given the book for the Saturday show, and he was going to use all the underutilized guys that couldn't be on Nitro, and we were going to redo it. And I believe if the plan for me was to do like almost like a Piper's Pit kind of thing, you know, if you don't want to give me anybody to manage, let me just be like the heel shit disturber. And there was a go on that, and it was supposed to be all set and ready to go, and I got a call from J.J. Dillon saying, see ya. And then I was horribly depressed and the despair set in. So, but that was pretty much the story of WCW.
So you were basically paid for more time than you actually worked then?
Yeah. Now, the first year I worked a lot. I probably worked 160, 180 days the first year. And then after that, it was all downhill.
Yeah. Did you see any change in Eric Bischoff from?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. How so?
I think he became sort of like a megalomaniac. He's the kind of guy that would always tell you up front, I'm not nice. I'm not friendly. I don't like people, so, don't get offended. It's just the way I am. I don't want to schmooze with you. I guess unless you're a big star that he's paying $1 million to. But you could just see the more we were kicking ass, the more arrogant he became. And he'd come out and just say weird shit. He'd come walking into meetings. Like one time he had a Vince McMahon WWE hat on or something. Yep, I'm going to buy me a wrestling company. I think you heard all the stories, like him insulting Ric Flair in front of all the boys and that kind of shit. He just got more, I think the power went to his head, and I don't think he realized that there was an end in sight. And, the old adage that what comes around goes around, and you're meeting the same people up on your way down, which I think came back to bite him in the ass a few years later. But he was always polite to me. I never had a problem with Bischoff until a few years later, which will be like during an ECW story. I mean, he was always polite to me, but just the stories about him are legendary. I think he was mad with power and just, couldn't see the business for what it was, and thought it would last forever, and thought he could just be an arrogant douchebag to everybody.
Yeah. When you were doing like the Nitro and Thunders, how much did you know going into the building, like what you were doing that night, or was it always like a last minute kind of thing?
Clusterfuck every time we went in. Yeah. You'd go in there and you'd be on the board. And another thing that used to piss me off, I'd see I had an interview and it was always getting erased off. But they were running around they had like a Xerox machine on a truck or something they'd bring in, and you'd see the board at noon or whatever time you got to the building, and all day long there's meetings going on and people back and forth, and right before the show was going, and sometimes during the show, you'd have Annette Yother and Craig Leathers, I think was his name, running back and forth. They were like writing the show sometimes as it was going on, because somebody on top didn't want to do something, and they're having to change the format constantly. So I mean, it got to where it was totally chaotic at the shows.
What was it like with the higher ups, and did they start treating the boys differently or anything once WWF started overtaking them?
I'm not sure, because when WWF started overtaking them, I wasn't there. Okay. I know I watched the show go all to shit. Then you'd see Bischoff go out and waste 20 minutes in a promo, instead of wrestling, talking about, you only beat me once, Vince McMahon, and all that kind of stuff. And do you remember when he challenged Vince McMahon to a fight?
Yeah.
How funny would that have been if Vince McMahon would have just shown up? Just shown up, bought a ticket, snuck in, and jumped down to the ring and kicked his ass. Like they're going to throw him. He couldn't throw him out at that point. That would have been funny. And McMahon, I'm thinking, would have kicked his ass. But you could just see the show going all to shit, and then it just turned into a sinking ship. And then it really, I hate to use the old cliche, but the inmates were in the asylum. Yeah. And you could just see the quality of the show go down. And another thing I didn't like was the damn NWO. First of all, everybody who came into the company became a member of the NWO. But even at the time, there were probably like 150 workers. And maybe at the height of the NWO, what would you say? There were 12 guys, maybe 10, 12.
There was a lot at one point.
Still, the problem I had with that storyline was you can't have a handful of guys take over the damn company unless they've got submachine guns on them. Because there's enough guys in the back at any given show that could just run up and beat their ass, and just swarm them. And then it got to where like you had an NWO B team, and then they switched the colors to red. I mean, it sucked. It went from being something that was really good and drew a lot of money to just garbage, and that trickled down on everything else in the company. I mean, you still had guys that, and it's not putting any fault on any of the boys, because the boys were working hard. You still had guys, that could kick ass and put on great matches, like Benoit or Eddie or Malenko and those kind of guys, but they were just getting shit on because the guys on top, from what I understand, were saying, screw them, they're a bunch of midgets. They're not going to draw money, And I think had they put the focus on those guys instead of whoever the new washed-up C-list WWE guy who joins NWO Team Blue or something would be. You know, I think they missed the boat on that.
Yeah. Was locker room morale, not looking at the very end of WCW, but from when you first started with the Blood Run Cold to like the end of your time on the road, was it more cliquey, or did locker room morale?
No, it was still okay up until the end of that first year.
Okay.
But you know, I'd go in and visit sometimes if they were in town or something, and yeah, you could tell it was going all to pieces later. And then at that point you started noticing, you know, there was the anti-Sullivan faction, the pro-Sullivan faction, the anti-Hogan faction. I mean, and everybody started getting a lot more insular, and you know, it wasn't pleasant. It was just one of those things where everybody was grumbling and bitching, and everybody thought the next guy was trying to stab him in the back. And it was not a fun place to be. I mean, you could just walk in and just almost feel it, you know, like you'd walk into a funeral. You know?
Looking back at the whole Blood Runs Cold thing, is there anything that you think you could have done differently that maybe would have gotten the gimmick over a little more, or they just were cutting the legs out from underneath it at the beginning?
Well, I think if they would have I think they should have put more of a focus on Canyon as the star of the group. I really don't think they ever gave Canyon his props on that, because he was so much more talented a performer than they gave him the opportunity to be. And even though people were still telling us, nah, guys with hoods don't get over, well, bullshit. Because Kane came out about the same time, and his initial ring entrance and all that looked very similar to the Blood Runs Cold shit that we did with Wrath. You know, here's a big guy with a mask, and he got over. You know, he had a manager who could talk for him, and he got over bigger than shit, and to this day he's one of their biggest names. But they weren't going to let it happen. It didn't matter what you wanted to do. But had they allowed him to run with it, had they allowed him to work people that he could have good matches with, that people, because like, I mean, and no offense to the luchadors, but they were totally buried. So beating a luchador meant nothing unless you beat Rey Mysterio, or who was the other one that had a big push, maybe
Hoovy,
Ultimate Dragon or Hoovy. Other than that, they just treated him like shit. And so beating them meant nothing. You know, they'd throw us that bone here and there. But if they would have programmed him with, I mean, frankly, at that point, your guys like Malenko or Guerrero weren't getting main event pushes. If he would have gotten in a feud with somebody like that he could have 4- and 5-star matches with, I think it would have made a difference. But I mean, as far as the story behind it, and like that stupid helmet. Yeah, when we started, we were supposed to be fighting over Glacier's ancient helmet, which was made out of fiberglass. You know, he'd be walking to the ring with it, and the marks are like banging on it. It's like, you know, there's no metal on it, you know. And it was just one of those things where they kind of set some stuff in motion, and they didn't care about it. They just let it go. They didn't pay any attention to detail. There was probably no way to salvage it. I think the character of Mortis could have been salvaged.
Yeah.
The storyline, no.
Whose idea was the whole helmet angle?
I think that was, I guess it was the initial concepts, I guess, were Bischoff's.
Yeah.
Or maybe Page had something to do with him, because he was involved in it. I mean, the only thing I ever really contributed to it was, I am the collector of oddities, and you guys are pit fighters. You're not spacemen, or whatever they were supposed to be originally. But yeah, they had some goofy shit planned. And in the end, they could have. And then, like, you know, they gave Glacier all those vignettes for 6-7 months before he came up, and there was no way you could live up to that hype. I mean, he's a good guy, but he wasn't ready to be the top star, you know. And I mean, that was originally supposed to be the plan. That was, from my understanding, Blood Runs Cold was going to be the big thing, and he wasn't. I don't think he was ready to carry the ball on that, and I think they soured on him pretty much immediately. And just no way to save it.
Yeah. You mentioned hazing before in WCW, back when we were talking about the smoky things. Was there anything that springs to mind or anything like that?
Off the top, nothing. I mean, nothing brutal. You know, I don't think anybody was getting their food shit in or any of that kind of stuff like you hear about it in New York. But I got hazed good, but, you know, by my immediate friends. You know what a Murphy bed is?
No.
It's like those beds that come out of a wall. They do stupid shit, you know, fold me up in the Murphy bed, you know, kind of more like harmless college pranks, nothing really mean.
Yeah.
But remind me to tell you about a nasty hazing I did in ECW when we get to that.
Okay. How was how about the party scene and the drug scene in WCW? What was that like?
Wasn't pretty. I'm not going to name names, but there was what was that shit called? Soma?
Yeah.
Good God, I couldn't tell you how many times I watched some guy. I figured like downers are supposed to, I guess Soma's a downer or something, but guys would be shaking. You ever seen anybody on that shit? And they were eating them by the handfuls. People passing out in their food, but they'd get the damn shakes and stuff like that. And you know, I like to drink beer and raise hell, but anything that's going to make you just a puking, shitting in your pants fool, why not? You know, how's that fun? And then the other thing that started getting used a lot was that GHB shit. And I used to walk into hotel rooms and it'd be some naked guy on the floor and you couldn't wake him up, you know? So Soma, I think, was the big one that I remember a lot of people were kind of overdoing, and then the GHB shit, and that shit can kill you.
Yeah.
You know, the GHB's bad news. That's not like smoking a little dope, you know. But those were the two things I was seeing used a lot.
Did management just turn a blind eye to it?
Well, you know what? They would drug test, right? Well, they drug test me, and they drug test the Nitro girls, and they drug test the referees. But everybody, all the guys who had these incredibly huge physiques, they'd say drug test from 4 o'clock until 5:30 p.m. You have to be here or you're fired. Well, the people randomly picked, like I said, you know, the guys who put up the ring, the managers, Jimmy Hart, Sonny Ono. And then these guys with incredible physiques come bouncing in about 6:30, 7 o'clock. And that was another thing where morale was getting fucked up. It was like, come on, you know, that was so obvious, you know, that they were being told, stay at the gym an extra 2 hours, you know. So.
Yeah. When you found out that WCW went out of business, of course you were in ECW, or ECW was closing up at that point too. Were you surprised?
I was surprised that it went totally out of business. I figured that it was going to go in the toilet for a long time, but I figured with Ted Turner behind it, you know, it would stick around. However, you know, all that crazy shit went on with the AOL buyout and all that, and the guys taking over who hated wrestling. I think it would have, had Turner not sold the Turner Broadcasting to AOL, I think wrestling would have stayed on there, and you know, we may have had to go through like another Jim Herd era or something, but you know, the wrestling's done that before on his channel, you know, and eventually you'd get the right mix of people and it would spring back to life. Yeah. But they had to get a lot of those fucking people. It had to die before it could. Either they needed to fire most of the roster and almost all of the office and start fresh, or something, you know, to make it. You had to scorch the earth to start new again with that company because it was too far gone.
Okay, moving on to the ECW days. How did you originally get into ECW?
I was. I had called. I think I left a message for Heyman or something, and he didn't call me back. And I read in the Pro Wrestling Torch that they were interested in bringing me in to manage Mike Awesome. So I called the Torch, and I said, "Hi guys, you don't know who I am, but I just read that you wrote I'm under consideration for ECW. Where'd you hear this?" And I think they told me they heard it from Heyman himself, I believe was the deal. But, you know, and then I'm calling Heyman. He just blowing me off. I didn't answer the phone or anything. At this point, I'm really getting, you know, upset. Because, again, now I'm unemployed. Still had some money. At the time, I was married to a woman who made 6 figures a year, so it wasn't like I was going to go hungry. But then I'm thinking, maybe I'm screwed. WWE doesn't want me because, you know, I've been a piece of shit in WCW. I'm not worth anything to them. I got to another one of those. It's time to quit. Time to give it up. Tear in my eye. Gotta let the wrestling dream go. You tried your best. And Raven called me at like 3 in the morning. By this point, Raven and I had long since become friends. He wasn't the douchebag that he was the first day I met him. And he called me in the middle of the night and said Paul wanted to use me. But I still hadn't spoken to Paul. He goes, "Fuck it, Vandy, just get in your car and just start coming to the shows. Just fly yourself to the shows." I'm like, Raven, you know, I've got a finite amount of funds, you know. I mean, I can't be buying $600 plane tickets every week to go follow ECW around if I'm not going to get a job. You got to show up. You got to show you're dedicated. So I did that. So I gathered Johnny Swinger with me because he was unemployed, or I'd asked for a release or something at the time. So we started either driving or flying to those shows every damn time they had them. And it went on for several weeks. I met Paul, I think First time I went in, it was by the third day I finally got a chance to speak to him, and it was just a real quick, "Oh, hi, how are you?" And he went back, and I'm thinking, oh, he's blowing me off, you know. I was up north somewhere, sitting around, and he just, out of nowhere, called me in. Oh, I know what it was. They weren't paying any attention to me, you know, and I'm getting really frustrated. So I said, fuck it, and I showed up one day in a black priest outfit with a clerical collar and all that. And just to pop the boys, we went to a restaurant. It was me and Raven and Johnny Swinger and somebody else. So I'm wearing my priest collar. Of course, I don't look like the devil at the time yet. And I'm ordering wine. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I went through like 3 bottles of wine at breakfast. and everybody's in this restaurant, it's like looking around like, oh my God. And the waitress would come over and Raven's like, "Hey, Padre, you ought to go a little easy on the hooch." So we come back and told Paul about it. He kind of laughed, you know, and he I guess he liked the lotion of the demented priest. So he called me over. Jack Victory and Steve Carino were in the middle of some promo. And you know the way Paul produces shit. It's not like, it's like on the run. It's just extemporized, and then he goes, "Let's do it," instead of, you know, really sitting down and planning it out. At least that's the majority of the way I saw it going on. And he called me over out of nowhere, and it was something like Jack Victory, or no, Steve Carino's head had been busted open, and Jack Victory was standing over him looking for a doctor. "Is there a priest?" And all of a sudden, my ass, who hasn't been seen on television in 2 years, comes walking out. And Paul had me go, like I was going to give him the last rites, and do like a half Latin, half Jewish. So it was like, "Dominus, Dominus, Mazel Tov and L'chaim," you know. And then I walked out and lit a cigarette, and I went, "This gig sucks. Beats managing Mortis and Wrath." And then and everybody kind of liked the promo, and I thought, oh, hell yeah, I'm back. Nope. Didn't do shit for another 2 or 3 months. And I got again to that place where I was like, okay, Paulie's blowing me off. Fuck him. Fuck ECW. Fuck wrestling. I'm done. And I went to, I think it was Fort Lauderdale. I drove up, I told my wife, ex-wife, thank God, and I said, this is it, I quit. If I don't get a job tonight, if Haim doesn't talk to me, I'm done. So I sit around the building all night long. They're recording promos at the end, and I'm like, shit. I'm walking out to my car, literally got a little tear coming down my eye. I stuck my key in the door and I heard, "Vandenberg!" It was Paul, and he had me do some little shit, just like I was trying to counsel Scotty, or Raven, in a hallway. I mean, it really meant nothing, and I don't think I was necessarily even saying anything. It was more like I was just trying, you could just see me gesticulating, like I was trying to screw with his brain in some way. And he kind of like that, and then I think I came back, and Raven, then we came up with this idea that I was going to be like the guy poisoning Raven's poor, tortured, mentally ill mind. And what we were going to riff off of was the guy from the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, who did so much acid and shit, he just blew his brains out, and this con artist named Eugene Landy came up and took all his money, totally took advantage of him, and kept giving him drugs, you know, and was having him play in sandboxes and all this crazy alternative therapy. So I said, well, look, yeah, I love scumbags and charlatans and humbug artists. I'll do that, you know, let's do it that way. And Raven was all psyched for it, but Paul never really got the ball rolling with that. So I did like 1 or 2 matches where like on house shows, where I think I managed Mikey Whipwreck. I didn't even know who the hell Mikey Whipwreck was. I mean, I'd heard the name. I didn't know who he was. And at the time, he had cut his hair short and all that. And I didn't see the fit, you know. I did like 1 show managing him before he turned into the red-headed Mikey we all know and love. And he got jobbed out to Francine or something. No, he was fighting Dreamer, and then Francine beat me up in the ring. And when I came back the next week, I got to thinking, the priest. There's a notion, and I started thinking, okay, what Raven did. I had a talk with Raven, and Raven said, Vandy, you're one of the best promos in the business, but you don't have a look. He said, your promos are a 9 or a 10. Your look, as like a 6. This is a cosmetic business. You can't just be the guy in the suit. You've got to do something, dye your hair, shave your eyebrows off, or so. I mean, he was just, and if you've ever been around Raven, I mean, he's constantly telling people how to tweak their act, and to make it marketable. So I went home and thought about it. He didn't tell me anything specifically to do, but I got to thinking, okay, well, the best gimmicks are usually ones that are part of you, Ric Flair is kind of Ric Flair, and the people who really find that piece of themselves and exaggerate it tend to be your most over-performers, the most successful. So I got to thinking, well, all my fucking life I've been called the devil or the devil's son-in-law or something, So I thought, how can I devil myself up? And I'd actually been kind of thinking about doing something like that, but not going straight devil. But I'd started, growing the beard a little bit. And I went and fiddle-fucked around with my eyebrows, and all of a sudden they went up, and I went, oh, wait, that looks kind of cool. Now what else can I do? What would a devil wear? So I went to a shop in like Polk County, Florida, like just the poor area, like Cracktown, and there was a shop that was called Pimps and Hoes or something like that, and it was where the players would get their obnoxious pimp suits, and there were whore outfits in there, and I saw this bright red obnoxious polyester suit, and I went, that's me. And then I went to the Catholic store. I got some good looks in there, buying the shirt to wear the collar with. Then I got the nails, and I showed up at TV the next week. And at this point, I don't think Paul knew what to do with me, and I showed up the next week. I think we were in Milwaukee, and he fucking popped. Everybody was like, "Whoa! What the whoa!" And it really was like a total. If you look at a picture of James Vandenberg and a picture of the Sinister Minister, that's two different creatures, And he popped huge and put me down in doing. I guess I closed the show out just like almost like a wraparound. At that point, then I became the narrator, like the crypt keeper. And I did I did that one, and the first time that showed on TV, when I have to think back to big mark out moments. The first time I saw my face fade in on the TV the next week when that aired, and I saw, and Paul was so great at producing me. He was really, he gave me the feel and the rhythm for that character. And I saw that, and I just went, this is it. This is me. I have found what I am, finally. Now I know my gimmick. And I did a few like that, and that were vague, wraparounds or whatever for the pay-per-views, but I wasn't managing anybody. And then I did one where, for some reason, Mikey Whipwreck happened when they panned out when I was done and cackling. Mikey Whipwreck was kind of over in the corner, and then they put us together, and we started. Let's see what happened next. Oh, where the character turned. Now, when I went in there, I was thinking I was the mysterious heel guy, and I felt like I was not necessarily part of that. That I was like in the alternate dimension on their show. Like who was the guy from the Flintstones? Gazoo, the little Martian that would pop up, like totally out of place, and he'd fuck with Fred Flintstone. That's kind of how I saw my character. I'm this mysterious guy, neither good, neither evil, just kind of like, I guess, if there was such a thing as a devil, and there's not. So that's kind of how he'd be, just kind of a mischievous little trickster, stirring up some shit and, on your shoulder, telling you to do shit. And so I figured I'd be essentially a heel guy and not even really a manager. Well, one night, we were at the arena, and I was a guy that could do my promo in one take. No more than two, like if somebody was loud or something when we started. But I was always really good about do the promo in one take and get out of there. But you'd have guys, they'd be in there with the damn Impact players, and it would be like 75 takes, and I'd wait, and then 5 o'clock in the morning I get to do my promo. Well, what do they say about a lot of time in idle hands or the devil's workshop? Well, the devil decided to take his fat little hands and wrap them around about a case of beer while waiting. So Mikey and I got absolutely shit-faced. And so I had an idea for two different promos. Found a Ouija board somewhere in the building or something, and Paul wanted me to do this thing where what was it? Oh, I was gonna chant Latin over a Ouija board, which then I kind of slipped back into my Smoky Mountain ways, and I'm like chanting in pseudo Latin, but I'm like dildos and vaginas, fias acrisuso, you know, and I do that for a second, and I just said, ECW is hotter than hell, and the table goes up in flames. And then out of nowhere, Mikey Whipwreck just falls out of the sky through the fucking table. Boom! And, I mean, it was like pointless, you know, it was just something drunk and stupid we did. And I just looked at him and said, you've got a hell of a knack for spoiling a moment. We cackle. So we figured that's the one promo that's done. Then as we're leaving the building, there's a fucking coffin sitting out there, like a Halloween coffin, and Paulie comes to me, here's what you need to do. And he gave me this promo, basically shitting on Bischoff. I don't remember the exact things that I said, but like challenging Bischoff to a fight, you know, good old ECW stuff. Fuck WCW, you know, we're the Outlaws, and you fired me, so fuck. Oh, and at the time, the word was going around that they were trying to get me and Mikey in, because I guess our act had been getting over for a few weeks. So he has me conduct this promo in such a way that I pretty much burned that fucking bridge before it ever opened back up. And I got done, we were so damn drunk that like when it was over, I got passed out, and I woke up in the morning and I went, we can't air that. Like, there's no way. You know, I'm thinking, you know, Bischoff's never been rude to me, you know, I don't want to fuck with him. And I called Paul. Paul, please don't air that, man. I go, man, they're too campy, they're too silly, they're too funny, you know, and I go, you know, it's just going to kill us. Devil, you have my word. It'll never see the light of day. So the next Friday or whatever, we're at the show, and I'm thinking, oh, God, okay, well, I'm not going to have a promo tonight because we did these two drunk things, and I hope he's not going to fire me for being drunk. And not only did the first one air, there was a commercial break, and the second one aired. And I went, oh, God. And like on the coffin one, I was so drunk, I was just really over the top and just gesticulating wildly and taking these weird dramatic pauses and rolling my eyes all over the place. Really just being over the top, like something out of a 1966 Batman show, you know. And I see it, and at the time I thought, my career is over. These ECW fans are going to eat me alive. This is the dumbest shit that's ever aired. I'm buried, over, out, and done. Got home and read the reviews, and people liked it. And I'm like, what? How the hell? What? This was stupid and silly, and I'm not a comedian. Well, as weeks went on, we did more and more, and it got to where people would just bring props to the, like, you know, to the arena. Hey, can you use this in your promo? And I'd look at it. What kind of punchline can you make out of this? Like, I'll give you an example. Hand me that bottle. And this is how people do their promos when they're drunk in the middle of the night. And again, I never got to do my promos till like 4 in the morning, 5. And again, I'm bored. I'm there from 11 to 5, and we'd just go out and sit around and drink beer until it was time to come up. So let's say I'd be sitting there and I'd go, slice. Well, what's a punchline? Diet slice, skinny vagina. Francine, you're so withered up and skinny, they call your crotch diet slice. You know, I'd reverse engineer the promo, but you know, that was kind of the method behind it. And they just got sillier and sillier and sillier. But the thing is, man, I had so much fun up there, and a lot of it is a blur. And in a lot of ways, I kind of wish I wouldn't have been running around like a drunken Bugs Bunny all night long, because I saw things now when I look at them. Some of them are painful to look at. Some of them I'm like, they're that close to being great. If only I would have tweaked something, or, you know, not been drunk and could have thought to, you know, clip this here, you know. And And then the other problem with some of them was that character could have gotten, I think if it would have had like money, you could have put production into some of the stupid ideas, because it was all basically based on visual puns. This became the formula. You could have done some neat stuff, and I think we did the best we could with tape and Band-Aids, to try to weave together a bad comedy, but it got over beyond my wildest expectations, and then I became a babyface and didn't know how to be that. I'd be going to Tommy Dreamer, how do I manage as a babyface? And he said, fuck it, just do what you always do,
Yeah.
But, so that was what happened.
How did Tajiri end up with you guys?
I'm not, like most things in ECW, it just kind of fell into, it might have been like somebody no-showed a match or something. I couldn't think of a rhyme or reason for it. I vaguely remember, no, I think it was Mikey. Maybe Mikey and somebody else teamed up. Do you remember? You were working there at the time. I can't remember what caused it, but it was like out of nowhere. And now Tajiri's a guy I always wanted to manage when I was there, but I wanted to manage him in that old school way. Here's the mysterious. I grew up with like Gary Hart managing Pac Song and these evil Orientals that don't talk, and they just and Tajiri did that kind of shit, but like Carino was his mouthpiece. So I really wanted to be with Tajiri, but Paul wouldn't give it to me. And at that point, I'd already settled into that comedy shit, and I didn't think it would fit. But when we got him, it was pretty amazing, because he's a funny son of a bitch. And it was like Penn and Teller with those two, because Tajiri, they say that he speaks English when he's going over and can't speak English when he's going to lose. But I'd talk to Jerry, and it was I didn't know what the hell he was talking about. But he would take direction, I could say to Jerry, here's what you're going to do, and it got to where then I didn't have to produce him either, because he instinctively knew how to make the funny faces and that stuff he does, and then that kind of helped us get a little bit more, more popular. Tajiri was always over with the folks, and he and Mikey made a damn good tag team. They had some great fucking matches up there.
Yep. One thing that you mentioned before is you said looking back on some of the ECW stuff, it's kind of painful for you.
Yeah.
If you remember that. How so?
Well, it's just, again, I could have tweaked it more, and again, it's my fault. I mean, people liked it, but since my character has changed from that, and I went back to being an old school heel manager, no comedy, no wisecracks or anything, it's so different than what I'd been doing in TNA that it's, again, some of it's just silly, and in some of it I see things that could have been tweaked if I hadn't have been drunk,
Yeah.
And another thing where I think towards the end, some of my promos suffered because Paul quit producing me, and then you had me and Mikey sitting around drinking beer in the middle of the night producing ourselves, and we didn't exactly have the proper perspective on what we were doing. So it's not like I'm ashamed of any of it. I just look back at some of it and think, the little bit more money to spend on props, or a little bit more time, and again, when you're doing promos, even if I wasn't shit-faced at the time, promos at 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, you're pretty damn tired, and you're not, I'd look at things and think, if I would have been doing that at midnight, my mind would have been a little sharper, and maybe this phrase could have been different. I'm Monday morning quarterbacking myself essentially now.
I got you. How about Paul Heyman? How did he change? You mentioned or let's go back to how you said that he wasn't producing your stuff later on. Was that just a matter of him not being at the shows?
It just wasn't. The last few months, he just wasn't around much. I think he'd be at the Philly show, but other than that, he wasn't on the road when we were doing the other TVs and whatnot.
Did he send along any kind of instructions or anything?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he'd be on the phone all night with Dreamer or whatnot, from what I understand. But he just, I guess that's when he was scrambling around trying to get a TV deal. And then I think he was doing rollerball at the time and just wasn't around a lot. And that company was had so much of Paul Heyman's imprint on it. I mean, he had to be there. It was like the fucking Beatles without George Martin producing them. I mean, he was as much as hard as all the guys worked and all that. I think a lot of the magic was Paul Heyman's stamp that he put on everything, and the way he produced people and stuff. You know, he could get great performances out of you. And one of the things that's good about Heyman, say, like, you know, the story I told you earlier about Kevin Sullivan basically calling me a piece of shit before I get started. Heyman would take it. Like, Heyman, I knew that obviously I was a damn frustrated manager who's been trying to get a break for a zillion years and was just getting shit on. And instead of taking an attitude like, yeah, fuck you, manager, you know him. He knows how to build you up. And so when you've got a guy who's maybe his self-esteem's been flattened a little bit, or somebody like, you know, like Just Incredible, who's the nicest guy on earth, but he was just so insecure about his work, you know, and Heyman would get these damn good promos out of him, you know, and he knew how to build you up, and you know, and the fucking sky could be falling, and he could just make it sound like something else. And you know, I love Paul. He's full of shit in a lot of ways, but the end result was he knew how to get the performance out of you, and he knew how to stroke your ego just the right way to make you feel confident enough to go out there and hit the home run, you know? Yeah. And you could feel it when he wasn't there.
How did Paul change from when you first started to the end?
I never noticed anything with his demeanor changing whatsoever. I mean, you know, I wasn't in the Paul Heyman inner circle or anything, so I don't know. I just know that he was missing, you know? Yeah. And other than that, you know, all the usual Paul Heyman kind of stories that everybody has, you know, all that kind of stayed the same.
Yeah. How about the ECW locker room compared to the WCW locker room?
Not a fucking comparison. Yeah. It was like, and that's the most fun I ever had. It's the only time I was ever in a locker room where I truly felt like everybody was family. Even the people who didn't like each other still had, you know, it was like, yeah, I might think you're an asshole, Gabe, but you know what? If it comes down between us and them, then we're on the same team, you know? And I think just about anybody who ever worked there has the same damn story to tell. Just a great sense of fraternal atmosphere, you know. It was really, really fun, and everybody. I'm generally like to think of myself as more of a lone wolf than a team player, you know. It's like I'm not into sports and shit. I don't want to share my glory with 80 other people. Fuck them, you know. But with ECW, I always felt different. It was, and I wanted to, and I did sometimes. I'd help produce guys, and I mean, everybody came in and gave a helping hand. It was really nice. It was a family.
Was there anybody that you didn't like to work with?
No, I don't think I had any problems with anybody in ECW. You know, there were some people, like, and again, I sound like, probably sound like Jake the Snake Roberts telling all these stories about being drunk all the time. Not quite the same creature there, buddy. But there was one guy, I won't name him, but he was like a big pothead, and I roomed with him one time. Well, at the time, you know, basically I just drank nonstop. The minute I woke up at 5 in the morning to get ready for the plane, I drank on the plane, landed, and my deal was I'd take some of the younger guys that weren't really making any money, and I'd pay for their room, pay for the food, pay for the car. You drive me around so I can drink, you know, and let me hold forth on whatever conversation I want. And this one guy who was at the time wasn't much of a player at the time in the company. He was a big pothead, and I get up one morning and I pop open a beer, and he's sitting there, God damn, I can't believe you're drinking beer. What the hell? God, that's fucking disgusting, man. How can you do that? All the while he's smoking a big bowl, you know? And I'm like, buddy, yeah, this it may not look good, but I'm not going to go to prison for it. You know, if the cops kick the room in, they're going to go, hey, drunk, go to sleep. You're coming with me downtown, you know. And other than that one person, and to this day, I don't think he's particularly fond of me, but I don't think I ever had any problem with anybody there. I mean, I was like a social butterfly, you know. Yeah. So I had a lot of fun.
What was the party scene like in ECW?
How has everyone else answered this?
It's been pretty wild.
It was...
Would you say it was more wild than WCW?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Absolutely. But, I mean, you've heard all the stories. I mean, everybody's read shit on the internet, so I don't need to rub anybody's face. I mean, I take responsibility for what I did. I don't want to get anybody in trouble.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But the other thing was, unlike some places, for the most part, people partied and they knew how to do whatever they did and still get in there and function, you know? So it really wasn't much of a problem, you know?
Yeah. How about, are there any road stories that you can share with us?
I did all kinds of nasty shit in ECW. Okay, here's a road story. This involves one of the few times I've ever really ribbed somebody. Yet I won't mention this guy's name because what I did was pretty humiliating. We'll just call him Johnny. Johnny, the wrestler. There was this girl, a wannabe rat, that was underage. And nobody would touch her. But it was confirmed that she was going to turn 18 on a certain date. And it was set up that she was going to lose her virginity at the age of 18 to the devil. So this was going to be a rather elaborate setup. I had a girl that was going to be there almost like a handmaid. And again, I do all this shit for comedy. I'm not one of these guys that abuses rats, you know. That's not my gig. I like women, you know. I don't have to piss on them and pull their hair and call them a filthy whore. You know, I like girls, okay? But, you know, if they want to go along with some comedy, I'm all for comedy. You know, that's more interesting than, hey, I screwed this girl. Well, fuck that, but what if you screwed her and, I don't know, did something silly, you know? So anyway, this was all set up, and I was going to screw this girl, and it was going to be a nice, funny thing. In fact, it may have been, maybe the plans were to videotape it, I don't remember, but it was set up like a comedy vignette, right? Well, Johnny, I didn't get booked the next week, and Johnny goes and screws her. He scooped my rat out from under me and took her virginity, so now the whole thing was pointless. So I'm kind of pissed, you know? Like, you dirty bastard. After all I've done for you, no, not that I was mad, but like, I'll get you. A few weeks later, he's bragging about the girl. We're sitting around, me and Canyon and some other people at Ruby Tuesdays or something in Atlanta. And this guy goes, he's just bragging about how he'd screwed her, and I went, you know, how's your yeast infection? And he's like, what do you mean? I go, well, you know she has a yeast infection. What do you mean? She didn't. I don't know. I have no idea. And he kind of laughed it off, and we left lunch, and he's riding along with me, Johnny. And he goes, devil, what does the yeast infection do? I go, oh man, you don't know. Oh, it's not going to be good, man. Man, your dick's going to look like, you know, like a cauliflower stalk. You're going to be in bad shape. So he goes, man, you got to get me something, man. I got to go to the doctor. And he's scared. And I go, no, we'll go to Eckerd's. So then my mind starts spinning. Yeast infection. I go, I know what we can do. We'll get you some Monistat. What's Monistat? And I go, it's what girls use for yeast infections. But see, if she's got one, you've got one too, so you've got to fix it. And he's like the little boy afraid to buy condoms. He wouldn't buy the shit. So I said, fuck it. We went into Eckerd's. He's hiding down the hall, down the aisles looking. And I get some kind of vaginal Monistat. One was like just a basic cream, and something else, another one had a plunger, you know. So we get back, and I set up a hidden video camera. Devil, how do I do this? Just bear with me, Johnny. Here's what you're not. I don't even know how. Again, I'm just like, this rib is just being made up as it goes along. And I go, well, open one of these little things up and just kind of rub it all over your shank. And I'm just laughing at him, thinking, you dumb bastard. And then it hit me. I'm looking at the ones with the plungers, and I go, I forgot, here's what you've got to do. I go, you see this? And he's like, what the hell am I going to do with that? Is it a shot? And I said, no, it's like a syringe, and you just push it all up in your vagina. Well, I don't have a vagina. I go, no, you have to put it in your ass. You know, if you have yeast, how are you going to get it in your system? You have to stick this thing up your ass and shoot it. And it's Monistat 7. You have to do it for 7 days. And this poor son of a bitch did. I laughed so goddamn hard. This guy's bent over. He looks like a dog taking a dump, trying to push this plunger of goo up his ass. And the next day, I see him, and I'm feeling kind of bad about what I did because he looked like a guy who'd been raped. Looks like, in the prison movies, they see the guys closing in on him, and then they cut to the next day, and the guy's dejected. This is how he was, I swear to God. He's sitting on the couch. Man. I'm like, what's wrong, Johnny? Oh, God, and I'm feeling like I violated him. So this guy, I'm just giggling. Of course, everybody knows what's going on. Everybody in Canyon's house is giggling at it, and, everybody's on the rib except for him. So every day it's like, so are you still using your monostat? Is it working? Every 7 days. Comes to me after 5 days. Devil, I need some more gimmick. I go, what do you mean gimmick? I need some gimmick. I go, I don't sell gimmick. I'm not a fucking drug dealer. And he's like, no, the stuff. What stuff? The monostat. I go, what, how, you're out? Yeah, and I go, wait, it's 7 days worth. Did it get good to you? I mean, are you addicted to it now? You like sticking things up your ass? So bought him another box, and I guess he went through that. And then I'm like, so you see, your yeast infection is cleared. Did your dick ever burn? No, it worked. See? Now you always come to me when you need medical advice. Road stories, yes. Again, most of mine involve something sexual. There was a time I had these two girls in a room, and I had an audience. Can't mention the audience because some of these people might be married. But I was kind of moving like a locomotive with my hands, so there was like one girl on each side, these two rats, and I'm doing my deal, and I'm doing the old double insertion, and I pulled my hand out, and I didn't have my ring. Wow. And I went, oh shit! And everybody popped, and I'm like, hon, I got to get that ring back. And she kind of, and the fucking ring popped back out. And that's the truth. There was some other chick that, and this is like one of those, I actually heard about this. I missed the show. And this is one of those examples where one of the things I don't understand about wrestlers and rats is treating them like shit. One girl one night was supposed to be getting remote controls and Tommy Dreamer action figures shoved up her flue. I mean, just crazy shit like that. But and ECW is like the last of the real rats. They had good rats, and you don't have them anymore. Now all the rats they're either in the business or they're guys trying to get in, bugging you, in the old days, you'd have the girl in every town, and they were cool, they'd take you around, you could stay with them if you were broke and all that, like the old rock and roll groupies in the, 60s and 70s, but they're kind of a lost cause.
I'm looking at probably the most famous incident, which was accident, of course, from ECW, was November, remember, when your hand got blown up. Why don't you take us through that?
Okay. I came up with the idea for a Thanksgiving-themed promo. So I was going to buy, the Horn of Plenty, and went out to a farmer's market and bought all this fruit and shit. And the idea was to have Mikey set up like a suckling pig with an apple in his mouth and hog-tied, and me and Tajiri, I don't remember what I was going to say, but the whole gist was we were talking back and forth and looking at fruit, and then once I'd start my laughing, you'd see the table's on fire, and there's Mikey hog-tied like a suckling pig with an apple in his mouth. And that was how we were going to go into the opening of the pay-per-view or something. So while we're doing this, what we were going to do was I was going to use my little fireball shooting gun. Instead of having somebody light it off camera, I was just going to hit my last point, shoot fire out of my hand, and the thing goes up in flames, and then you see Mikey. Well, I'd been progressively over the couple of months loading more and more flash paper into this thing. And what it was like the size of 244 Magnum casings, about each one about that big, made out of brass, and it had a little glow plug on it and attached some batteries to it. So this is a double-barreled one. Well, I get the bright idea, as we're backstage screwing around with it, I kept loading more and more flash paper and getting progressively bigger balls. And then I got to where I could blow 2 out at one time, and it looked like a damn howitzer or something coming out of my hand. So I'm sitting there with Mikey, and we're testing it, and I kept loading a little bit more, and it got to where I loaded the son of a bitch to the brim with flat, packing it. And I had a toothbrush, and I'm sitting there ramrodding it in, and just packing it in. And I don't know what happened, but Mikey's sitting about as close as you are to me, and I'm ramrodding it, and BAM! And I in shock for a second, and I looked at my hand, and it wasn't too fucked up looking that second, but I knew something went wrong, and like a piece of my finger didn't look like it was there, and I was looking at it, and I went, fuck, Mikey, this is not good. And I look at Mikey, and he's got pieces of my hand all over his fucking face.
Ugh.
And then I stood up, and blood starts coming out, and then it doesn't just come out, it's squirting like a fountain, right? Well, I walk into the other locker room, and I was always bringing new gimmicks or something in for the gags for the promos. So I go walking in, and I'm looking at these people, and I'm like, I need an ambulance, and the blood's squirting, and they're going, man, that's the best gimmick yet. That shit's great. I'm like, no, I'm not kidding, and I'm like starting to, it's settling in that something's wrong. So I go and stick my hand under the water in the sink, and I look down, and there's a hole in my shirt. And then I feel it, and it's like the old cowboy in the black shirt in the movie. I realized, uh-oh, and I stuck my finger in a hole in my gut. At that point, I knew I was in deep shit. So they put me in an ambulance, and as I'm getting in there, I remember Ron Buffone, the cameraman, going, Devil, please tell me you have insurance. And I'm like, yeah, I have insurance, that's great. I get to the hospital. Oh, while this is happening, they're trying to film it. And his cops and EMTs are cursing at them, get the fuck out of here! And Ron's like, fuck you! This is our employee, our show, our thing. God damn it, we're going to do whatever we want to do. And they're just kind of carting me off, and I get to the hospital. I get in there, and my hand is all fucked up. I mean, it looked like I'd grabbed a running chainsaw. It was blown totally open. I blew part of my damn fingertip off there. I guess you can see the difference. But I'm in total shock, and I get in there, and they wouldn't mess with my hand for a few days because they were worried about the shrapnel in my stomach, because that's what could have killed my ass. And they take me in there, and you ever seen like those anal probe sex toys that look like they're kind of like, they were going to stick something like that up my ass for an enema. They're pulling me in there, and they go, now we're going to have to give you a barium enema. And I'm like, oh no. And then I see this thing hanging on the wall, and I'm like, I've used one of those on a girl before. What the hell is that? It looked just like it, and it was flesh colored too. And I was like, oh my God, I can't, I'm going to blow my hand up, and they're going to bugger me too. Luckily, I somehow got out of the enema, so I didn't have to get sodomized in addition to disfigured and maimed. But so I'm in there for a couple of days. They first went in there and did exploratory surgery on my gut. While that night I was in there, the show's still going on. I called and I said, get a camera down here. Let's come up with something. I'm high as a damn kite on morphine. This could be good. And they didn't bring a camera in though, but then it aired, and everybody thought it was bad taste. And I told them, I begged Paul to do it. Let's maybe it's nothing worth saving, but maybe we could do an angle out of it. And that's what happened. So $100,000 worth of medical bills later, I got use of my hand back. I had to have, and it's totally shot the left side of my body. My they had to do like nerve repairs. They cut pieces of nerves out of other places to graft nerves together, and to this day it makes me walk funny because my left side of my leg, the whole left side down, the sciatic nerve and all that shit screwed up from it. So it was a hell of a night.
Yeah. Did you get a lot of support from ECW?
Oh, hell yeah. And then when I came back, one of the other moments in my career that really stands out, when I made my return like a month later at the Hammerstein Ballroom, when I came through that curtain, I had never heard a pop that loud in my life, certainly not for me, and it was just thunderous, and it made me tear up. I knew they liked me, but I didn't think they gave a shit, and I'm sure part of it was just, God, I can't believe this crazy bastard's back after and I almost fucking killed myself. They kept telling me, not murdered myself, almost died, because I was going into shock and my blood pressure was so high, and they're going, you need to calm down or you are going to die. I'm like, I'm fine, get a camera in here. And they're like, no, we're not fucking around, you are going to die. And I was oblivious to it. But I came through that curtain, and it was just a thunderous roar. And if you look, there's some pictures I've seen of it. I heard it, and it's just like another one of those moments. I'm walking around, I got tears in my fucking eyes. It was a pretty emotional thing. Hold on, I'm not answering the phone. I'm turning an alarm off. I hope that's what it is. Yeah, okay. Continue.
We're still rolling. Okay. Looking back at your time in ECW, what were some of your favorite matches to be involved in? I know the big thing was the matches against the FBI.
Yeah, that was pretty much it. Because, for a long time, Mikey and I didn't really have a program. Me and him and Tajiri were involved in matches with people, but no, that series with the FBI was really good. And the night in Hammerstein Ballroom when I think it was the night they won. The night they won the tag titles. When I came back, that was a hell of a match. That was just the craziest suicide car crash of a match you could imagine. It was really good. Those four guys had great chemistry together.
What was the FBI like to work with?
A lot of fun. Yeah, Mama Luke's one of my favorite people, and Guido was really good. I mean, they just worked super together. A lot of fun.
Yeah. When now you were out, how long were you out for with the injury?
1 month.
Okay. Did anything really change between the time that you left and the time you came back?
That was about the time money started drying up. Checks were kind of being skipped a couple weeks in a row, and the writing was kind of on the wall, we kind of knew, but we didn't want to believe. It's like a kid being told there is no Santa Claus. We didn't want to believe it was going down the shitter, but it was, and it ultimately turned out to be true.
Yeah. How was morale at that point?
Well, I mean, people were sad, but I mean, it wasn't like people were angry or thinking, it was like a family watching a loved one die. Is the feeling that I caught from most people, that we can't believe we took this band of fuck-ups and outlaws and winos and, malcontents and people that were told they'd never get over, took this little piece of shit company that started in a vomit-stained bingo hall and turned it into the kind of, I guess, as an underground phenomenon, a cultural phenomenon. It was pretty damn huge, and it was just sad. Everybody always worked hard, and we built this thing, and it was really disheartening to see it dry up and go away.
Yeah.
Because most people will tell you that's the most fun they ever had working in that company.
Why did you, and maybe you can answer on behalf of other people in the locker room, but why did everybody stick around when they weren't getting paid and still work?
Because we loved it and we believed in it.
Yeah.
And you'd get the checks in the mail kind of shit, the old classic Paul shit.
Yeah.
Your FedEx number's this. Well, that's not the FedEx number. Change the last four numbers around. But we just believed in it, and we believed that if we could get on to national television, that all of a sudden the money would roll back in, because we figured once this band of misfits got seen, if we were this big a deal with the limited viewership we had, God almighty, if you brought it to a national stage, it would take off like a rocket, and we unfortunately never got the chance to do that.
Yeah. Did you think that the TNN deal would be the TV deal to really, bring this to the next level?
Not TNN. TNN obviously screwed us.
Yeah.
We knew that was kind of an uphill battle. But we were counting on, or hoping that we could, take Vince's slot at USA. A lot of us were, or one of the other networks, but a network that wouldn't screw us, that wasn't planning all along to sell the slot to Vince McMahon. So it was just sad.
Yeah. Now, when Paul wasn't around, Tommy Dreamer really stepped up as part of the leadership in the locker room. What do you think of the job Tommy Dreamer did holding everything
together? Very good. I love Tommy Dreamer. He was Paul was the mad scientist. If you look at old horror movies, there's the mad scientist, and then the one guy who's like, "But Dr. Deadly, don't go too far over the top." But Tommy Dreamer was that guy. He's the voice of reason that eventually Frankenstein would kill. He was, he brought sanity to it. Paul's crazy like a fox. Dreamer's a little more mellow and level-headed, So I don't know anybody that disliked Tommy Dreamer. A great guy.
Yeah. Now Raven, he's done a couple of these videos for us, and he's admitted his drug use at the time and everything. Were you pretty good friends with him at that time? Yeah.
Well, he got me in, and here's the deal with Raven at the time. At the time, I didn't know he was on drugs like he was. Like he's since admitted that he was doing, I forget how many Oxycontins a day. I didn't know. I just thought he was being an irritable dick. So I'd drive him around. Well, you wouldn't want me to drive you around if I was sober. I'm fucking horrible. I drive like an old lady with poor eyesight, you know. I'm all over the road, and I just suck, and I ride the brake all the time. I don't like to drive. It's a necessary evil, you know. And so here's Raven, all beaten up and broken down, and plus he's high anyway, and I'm, you know, part of the deal was, and this was earlier on in my tenure there, I'd drive him around, you know, and God, he'd bitch and moan and yell at me, and he was pissed off, you know, because of the way I drove, and it's shaking his neck around, and he was pretty hard on me there for a while, and then when he stopped working there, we were all. I mean, we never had a blowout or anything, but he was an irritable son of a bitch, which I would attribute to his drug use, because you could tell the difference when he got done. All of us, because you know, Raven's like a little boy. Yeah, he's kind of a mischievous little kid, but when he was on that shit, it was like the Raven character was a shoot, the brooding, pissed off. You know, that was a shoot, and I didn't know it at the time. I just thought he was a dick. You know?
Is that who do you normally travel with in ECW?
Who did I?
Yeah,
I would travel a lot of times with like Swinger and Mama Luke, and traveled with Gertner a good bit. And pretty much, you know, anytime there was a new guy that would come in, you know, that was broke, because frankly I felt a little guilty about the kind of money I was making compared to people that are breaking their fucking neck every night. So I'd do shit, you know. I'd travel with guys like that probably weren't making $75 a night, and I'd sleep on the floor and give them the bed, you know. But that's and yeah, Dawn Marie and Pat, or Simon Diamond, and Mama Luke and Swinger were the ones I traveled with the most.
Yeah. You mentioned before that you did some hazing of your own in ECW. Is there any stories you can share?
Well, that was part of the story about Johnny. I won't tell you whether I traveled with him or not. No, and I'm not referring to Johnny Swinger.
Okay.
Figure it out.
Right. What are your memories of your final night in ECW? Was it the pay-per-view or?
Yeah, I guess it was the one in Manhattan.
Yeah.
A lot of fun, you know. As I recall, it was a really good show, and I came out of it thinking I was going to set the world on fire, and then somebody pissed on the matches. So it was a great show. I didn't whatever the next show was, the final one, I wasn't booked on.
The Midwest,
and that was it.
Yeah. Did everybody think that pay-per-view was the final night?
No, I don't think.
No.
I mean, we knew things were tight, but we didn't think it was. I don't think we saw the end as close as it was.
Yeah.
We still kept hope that somebody would bail us out.
Yeah. I remember actually, and you can share perspective of this, walking in and saying to Louis Dangerously that our last TV show I think aired the week before, and I don't think anybody really realized that we were off TV when that pay-per-view started. And did you get that sense from the locker room that we were off TV?
I can't recall now, thinking back.
Yeah. What do you think now of the whole comeback of ECW as kind of nostalgia?
Well, since they're going to do it the proper way, by having Paul Heyman and Tommy Dreamer heavily involved in it, and they're not having people that are unaware. My biggest fear of it was, well, first of all, you know, when ECW went out of business, every asshole startup company was Extreme something, and they were trying to use all the guys and try to recapture the magic. You know, like Court Bauer was a very nice guy who ran MLW. You know, it was like, guys, you're trying to capture lightning again, you know, and it's not going to work. It just, you know, with anybody else, it came off as cheap imitation ECW shows, and every upstart bullshit cable access TV show, it was all extreme, and the cameras were going in and out, and they were doing all the same stuff, and the announcers screaming, "Oh my God!" and "cat fight" and whatever, and it just, to me, it came off like shit. And my biggest fear, there was a time where I figured, well, you know, maybe TNA should just, not TNA, ECW should just stay in the ground, you know. What's that line from that movie Pet Sematary? Some things should just stay dead or something. Because my fear was if Vince were to restart it, he might have a bunch of writers that came in that didn't know any of the characters, and that they might call it ECW, but they'd be using Rico or what, you know, just people that weren't part of it, and that it wouldn't be authentic. However, I am on that pay-per-view, and Paul told me that they want it to be like it was. Because I even asked him, I said, well, Paul, you know, I've kind of changed from that, you know, and I don't go to work drunk all the time. So, I mean, part of the Sinister Minister was a shoot. It was just, he wanted me to, that character was kind of a boozy, sleazy, devilish guy. Well, that's what I was. And, when I went to the next company, I'd gotten where I was doing real serious money promos and being a hardcore, serious heel. And I sent Paul an email asking him if maybe I should show more of that. And he said, Vince McMahon wants it like it was, right down to the last detail. He doesn't want Paul out there. He wants Paul wearing backstage passes and a scruffy face and a hat and the old shitty boots with holes in them and the whole thing. He wants it all to be like it was. So I'm excited about it. I think it'll come off really well because you've got the right people to do it.
Yep. I guess next time we see you, we can be talking about that because it'll probably.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah. I was surprised to get the call.
Yeah. How come you never ended up going to WWE? I
got a couple of calls. Well, first, right after I got out, I got a call from Kevin Kelly, right when ECW bit the dust. And he asked me to send a tape and all this shit, but then I heard through the grapevine from other people later that Kevin Kelly was in a shitty little office somewhere and nobody gave him any props, and supposedly he would just call guys just to kill time or something, so they go, oh, Kevin, what can I do for you? I don't know if that's true or not, but nothing came of that. And then a couple years later, when I was in TNA, I'm reading on the internet and in the sheets that they wanted, I think it was me and Swinger and Kid Cash or something, and I called a friend of mine up in WWE, who shall remain nameless, and asked them if that was true, and they said, oh yeah, but then the thing was, I had started a business. I'd finally given up on, ECW pretty much taught me the lesson of counting on making good money for a long time in the wrestling business. It's just too volatile, and then right now it's in a shitty cycle. So I started my own business singing at resorts, and I'm making more money than I'm doing really well, more money than I made in wrestling. And my concern at the time, when I talked to this person, I said, well, look, I'm making this much money. I said, I don't think they're going to pay me anywhere near that. And he said, well, no, they probably won't. And I said, if I go in there and ask them for the kind of money it's going to take for me to give, see, it's not just giving up a gig, it's giving up a business. And I am the business. It's not like I can sell it to somebody. It's all because here's a devilish fucking guy singing Frank Sinatra songs that kind of makes it unique at these resorts. And so I didn't really pursue it after that, and I think word had leaked back out that there was no damn way I was coming in for the kind of starting deal, so they nobody ever actually called me at that point on it. But supposedly it was true, according to my inside source. So that's probably best that I didn't go. Anyway, had they offered me, and there was a time when I would have. There was a time I would have gone to WWF for $200 a week just to be there. But again, I do not trust the wrestling business anymore. I love it, but it is a harsh mistress. It's Hunter Thompson once said about journalists that journalism is a low trade and an addiction worse than heroin. That's how wrestling is. It's kind of this fun, sleazy, it's like the girl you have on the side, and it's addictive. Everybody says they're going to quit, and they don't. And that's why I've never made the formal announcement, I'm retiring. Well, A, who gives a shit if I retire? We're not going to have a retirement show. But B, I don't want to make a fool out of myself, because I know it's like every time I think it's done, and I'd resign myself again to being done with wrestling, and I get a call that I'm going to be on the pay-per-view, and maybe, that may be my wrestling swan song, and that's fine. And if that happens, I'll be a happy boy, because, everybody wants to at least work for Vince once, and if nothing else, after all the shit and stupid stuff I did, I would have gotten there, and and again, if Paul's producing it and I get to be the devil, then hell, I'm kind of doing it on my own terms, and that'll be a fine swan song. And if something comes out of it with them beyond that, we'll look into it. I don't know that I don't like to travel really anymore. So you think about, I make as much money in 3 hours as I would make spending an entire 24 hours on the road, because the minute you wake up and get in your car, that's when work starts, and that's why when I worked for TNA, it was fine, because it was 1 day a week and it was getting out and seeing the boys. I don't know how well I'd do on the road, and You know, it's been a long time since I've been on the road full time, but I used to just get in such fucked up misadventures. You know, I don't know if I could handle it, but we'll see.
Yeah. How do you compare working for Paul Heyman to Jim Cornette?
Different. Jim Cornette was a lot more structured. Paul E., like I said, was kind of like taking a Scrabble board and throwing it in the air and going, I love it. You know, let's do that. You know, and he took a lot of chances, and he'd throw shit against the wall. Some of it stuck, most of it stuck, some of it didn't. You know, but Cornette, from what I recall, was a lot more structured. And you know, you'd come in the back with Cornette, and be, God damn, why in the hell did you do that fucking shit? God damn, what the fuck, you stupid fucking asshole. You know, Paul E., I never really ever saw him blow up on anybody. It'd be like, you know, you could totally fuck it up. Like I said, he's such a baby face. That was great. Don't worry about those people. Fuck them. You know you're the best. You know, and some guy who'd fucked up a spot would go walking away with a smile on his face. Now maybe Paul might be going fucking asshole, but nobody. It was a lot looser. But in a way, it was kind of more creative freedom too.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, as much as I say, but there was Paul, the specter of Paul over the whole thing, but everybody really had a whole lot of input into what they did in the ring and what they said and the way their characters were presented, more so than I think you would if you were working, you know, in Smoky Mountain or Ohio Valley.
Yep.
You know, and that doesn't make either one better than the other. I mean, fuck, I'd love to go work. I would love to work under Jim Cornette right now. You know, and again, just to work under a master. You know, and go back to that structured, because you know, old school. I love old school wrestling. That's what I grew up on. You know, so that would be fun.
Yeah. Now, looking at TNA, how did you end up there?
Got a phone call. They first wanted me to manage Lenny and Lodi and make me a gay manager. I said, fuck that. Then Jeremy Borash called me up and he said, we've got the perfect idea. Father James Mitchell and the Lords of the New Church. And I said, well, you can't say the Lords of the New Church. That's the name of a band and you're going to get sued. Okay, the Disciples of the New Church. That works. So how are we going to do this? Oh, it's going to be serious heel shit. So they gave me Malice and Slash. Oh, before I got there, so then I'm thinking at this point, maybe I want to divorce myself from the boozy devil. I want to get back to being serious. So I wanted to do something very different. So I was going to go back to that Abdullah Farouk character, you know? And I went out and they said, oh yeah, it's great, and I had some sketches drawn up. And the fezzes and all were going to be really ornate. I went out and had like $700 worth of those things made with jewels and shit. And they're all ready to do it, and I get to the first taping, and they said, no. Jerry Jarrett goes, well, I thought you were going to be a minister of the occult. And I went, okay, I'll lose the fez. Went out there with Malice and Slash, and Malice was a really good guy, but he just could not get his head around what his character was supposed to be. I told him, you're a monster. Monsters act a certain way, but he wanted to be Brian Pillman, you know, and he wanted to be the loose cannon. I'm like, bro, just please don't do it. I know you want to, but it doesn't work, you know. And so the first, I was in there, I guess I had 3 or 4 runs. First run in, that one, I did like couple of really good promos early on, and then they kiboshed us, you know. And you know, Jerry Jarrett was talking to me one time about what a big push we had, and I said, well, Malice has lost every match he's had. You know, been in here 8 weeks and he's lost every match. And he's like, oh my goodness, I've been so busy I didn't realize that. So they sent me home. Then they brought me back, and we that's when they gave me Brian Lee and put him with Slash, and that's when they started running the little packages about evil, never rest, and all that shit, and we got over huge. We were like kind of horseman heel, babyface heels.
I remember the crowd.
We were getting over huge as shit, which probably why we got yanked away again. But we had a great series with America's Most Wanted. I mean, and we were doing a combination of the new shit, but a lot of old school psychology, and there were several weeks we were just flat out stealing the show. But suddenly they kind of quit letting me talk. You know?
Why do you think they did?
Here's my feeling in TNA. I really think that I chewed up too much of the scenery. I think they had people they wanted to push as big stars, and I will say to this day, sorry if I'm offending any of you guys in TNA, I don't hate anybody there. I did the best fucking promos they've ever had there, period. And they were consistently good. It wasn't like one week I did a good one, because sometimes they've had people that do good promos, and then 2 weeks in a row, like, what the fuck are they talking about, you know? But I think I was chewing up too much of the scenery because people they wanted to push, you know, if they're higher on the card than me, and here's this little fucking bald, fat, devilish fucker, and he can cut a better promo than them, well, what's it make the star look like? Or the guy, you know what I mean? And I mean, that's just my feeling. But if you've got a guy like me, and I mean, it took me years, I don't feel like I really, really learned how to. Sometimes I did money promos by accident in the past, but I didn't quite understand the formula, you know? And then I hit it. My last run in there, like the one with Raven, that's where I did the really good promos, because they quit scripting shit for me, and I hate a fucking script, and that's why most of the people there, or most of the people in the wrestling business now sound like shit, because instead of being given 4 bullet points to remember, you know, they're trying to rehearse 4 pages of goddamn dialogue, and so they've got to hit every line exactly the way they want it. So they're not getting a performance; they're getting somebody trying to remember something, you know, and it comes off shitty. And I didn't work that way, and I think you could just see the difference in my promos, and I think it made them look bad, or in comparison. And when I started my feud with Raven, that's when it really took off, and they left me alone. And I'll give them this: that was probably the best run I ever had from a technical standpoint of doing my character the way I wanted to do it. And again, I wasn't, you know, fucked up every night like I used to be. I was really proud of the work I did on the mic there. But and why in the hell? And see, the thing is with TNA, they'll never say they're mad at you. So, I mean, I don't know. I wish there was somebody I could be mad at, and I'd call them assholes. I mean, everybody's real nice. The Jarrett's are nice. I'm really like Jerry Jarrett. But, you know, it's one of those deals. Hey, when am I on? And they wouldn't tell you. And the main thing they did that pissed me off was I would be, you know, I've got these gigs at the resorts, and they'd suddenly quit booking me, and I'd say, okay, guys, I need to know, you know, if you're not going to book me, I'm going to go make money on this day, you know? And then I'd go do it for another 3 or 4 months, and they'd call me back, and they started this shit of saying, you're going to be back next month. And I said, okay, so I'm going to clear Tuesdays or Wednesdays in April off my slate, which several $1,000s for a month worth of Tuesdays. And then they wouldn't call me. I wouldn't return my phone calls. And this would go on for a couple of months, and I'd be like, well, fuck that. Then I'm going to go book this thing again. And then they'd call me again. You know, and that just pissed me off, because it's like, have the decency to call me and say, we've changed our mind. So then I'm not sitting at home losing the money. And that's really the only thing they ever really did to piss me off. Otherwise, I mean, you know, and the company has problems. You know, there's been all kinds of weird creative ups and downs in it, but it was ultimately, I mean, I'm not ashamed of anything I did there. I had fun. I'm really proud of my mic work.
Yeah. The 2 most famous incidents from you were there. Well, the first one was your match against Raven, where you bled everywhere. What are your memories of that match?
Well, you have to go further. You have to back that up to shaving his head.
Yeah, that was the second one.
That's the first thing that led into the second one. And I'm not so sure that wasn't a fucking rib on Raven, because there were 2 sets of shears out there. One looked like a jack-o'-lantern's teeth, which is what he got shaved in. The other one looked like regular clippers, and I saw them both. They were both on the table. Well, the one that's a little less offensive is missing when the match starts.
So you think someone did
But, you know, I've never done it before, and I'm going, Jeff, how do I do this? And I turned it the same fucking way that I shaved his head with, which I now know is in reverse. I said, what do I do? And he said, just turn it on. And I ran it across my arm. I said, like this? Yep. So I didn't know. He's probably too busy going over a match with somebody. So I get in there and I go to cut Raven's fucking hair, and I'm nervous and I'm excited, and there's blood every fucking where anyway. But I'm doing it, and at the angle I'm at, I can't quite see that I'm ripping his head up. But then when it starts happening, then what are you going to do? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, all I could do at that point was just, yes, I'm raping your head, you motherfucker. And like the. So I do it, and then I realized when I'm walking to the back, I saw his head on the big screen. I went, oh, fuck, I need to get my ass kicked. And I was going to take myself into a room and say, Raven, come here. Give me a shot. Just give me a shot. But he was pissed off, as I'm sure I would be if somebody ripped my fucking scalp off. And he came through the back. You motherfucker! Boom! And shoved me, cursing and screaming, you motherfucker, I don't ever want to work with you, and just saying all this rotten shit and hurting my feelings. I'm like, damn, I thought we're buddies. And then he like wiped the blood off his head and pie-faced me. And he went to take a swing at me, and I'm thinking, oh, fuck. And to Raven's credit, I think he realized he pulled it at the last second. And, I'm out of there, and like Jerry Jarrett's, God damn, you almost ripped his head off, you almost killed him. And I thought that, I thought I'd be done, and then me and Raven made up that night, And I think in retrospect, when you look at it, they wanted me, it worked out better. They wanted me to do the old cut it and throw it up in the air, cut it and throw it up in the air. Came out much better if you look at it now, and I'm sure Raven wouldn't do it any other way because that was some intense shit. Yeah. This then leads to our match. I don't know how to wrestle. I don't know shit. So I'm thinking Raven's going to get there early for the big match, and we're going to rehearse it. No. Raven didn't get to the building till like 7:30, 8 o'clock because there was a traffic jam or something. Him and Eric Watts were late. And I'm like, oh, God. And he gets her, Raven, what are we going to do? Just calm down, Vandy, calm down. 5 minutes. Man, Raven, what are we going to do? Just calm down, Vandy, calm down. And I'm thinking, you're going to get 5 minutes out of my fat ass? I'll throw up. I'll get blown up walking to the ring. And we got in there. And it was fun. And he cut the shit out of me. So I didn't want to cut myself because I didn't know what the hell
he did it for you.
He did it. We got the first one, and it wasn't good enough. If you look at the tape, you can see he's really on me. And then Mike and Tanae's trying to cover it, going, he's got him in the Shinnomaki on the floor, while he's down there trying to cut me. Like he did two, and he picked me up, and you can see it wasn't getting good. And then he got a gusher, and I was in there just bleeding my ass off. But I pulled it off. But then when it was I was proud of the way it turned out. I mean, just as a wrestling match, it would be shit. If you followed the story, it made sense, and it was a good manager ass whipping. And I was so scared. I was just like, don't give me any offense. Just beat my ass. Beat my ass in 2 minutes, and it's over. Because, in fact, manager matches always suck. Yeah. We don't know what the fuck we're doing. We can't have them. I think Cornette knows how to wrestle a little bit, but, most of us look like shit. But I was proud of the way it came out, and Raven didn't hurt me. I kind of hurt myself. I mean, I was home for about a month after that, 2 months. Turned out I'd broken my damn hand from, I guess, slamming my head into it on rails and stuff. And what else? Had a really bad black eye the next day, and like my cut kept busting open, like it busted open on the plane the next day. I was asleep, and everybody was screaming. And I've got, the same color, like a Bill Apter magazine from the 70s. I'm laying there asleep, snoring, all fucked up from the night before and gushing blood. But it was fun. I mean, that feud with Raven was, Raven and I bitch at each other like two old Jews all the time. We have a love-hate relationship. We hate to love one another, But he really did a lot for me, and he elevated me. And one of the things that annoyed me about TNA was when I came back, I felt like I had proven myself as somebody. They left me alone to do all those promos. I did money promos. I'd love to see the buy rate me and Raven did on that. And they just didn't use me, and after that, that sucked, but that was the high point. And so thank you, Raven. If that's the last thing I wound up doing, he let me, I would have felt proud about that, the way the story arc went and all that. I was happy with it.
You mentioned the 2 sets of shears, so you think that maybe somebody...
I think somebody, I can't say for sure, I think somebody moved the shears. I mean, Raven had some heat on him. I had to stop. Slash was going to hurt Raven. He wanted to break his legs. I mean, he was mad at Raven. And, there was a lot of weird political shit going on, and people weren't with it. And I finally convinced Brian Lee and Slash not to permanently maim Raven, because I told him, if you do it, then we're all getting fired, because if you hurt him, then I'm going to have to jump on you and pull you off of him, And
what was Slash angry about?
He was under the impression that Raven was, I think that Raven, he said that he heard Raven said that there was no money in him or something like that, and he was not happy about that. And I'm like, bro, you're on TV every week. Make your money. If you do that, you're not going to get any money, and nobody's going to hire you if you go breaking somebody's fucking kneecap, So we got a kibosh put on that, but because of all the shit that was going on, I wouldn't be surprised if somebody said, hey, wouldn't it be funny if all Mitchell can do is hit him with the jack-o'-lantern shark teeth blades? And again, I did it upside down, but, still, and I don't know that for sure. That's just, I can't imagine why the proper shears disappeared, but who knows.
Yep. Any quick memories from your NWA tag title run when you were managing Brian Lee and Slash? Stand out to you, or
just a lot of good matches with America's Most Wanted. Nothing, no one thing in particular. I remember being frustrated because you could hear when there were chants, there were a lot of chants for Low Key, there were a lot of chants for us. We were over, and it just felt like they weren't.
They didn't want
like
you guys
somebody
to be
goes,
over.
well, we don't. Oops, this wasn't supposed to work. Let's cool them off. And it's like every time I've been there, every time I get steam, every time I build steam, I disappear off the plate. You know, so such is my story. I mean, I don't have any problem with them. I don't hate them, and they were always nice to me, at least to my face. So I wouldn't be averse to doing business with them again. But I'd go into it with a different attitude. I mean, I wouldn't be expecting anything out of it. I've gotten jaded enough about the wrestling business to pretty much not trust anybody.
Yeah.
You know?
Was there ever any final conversation between you and TNA? Or
No, I was supposed to get hired again, and then they were going to have me. They were going to sign a new contract, and we agreed to a new contract that I never got, and then they were going to have me manage Abyss. And goddamn, if there was anybody on earth in that company, a guy that big who can work that well, who's that over with the people, why don't you give him a mouthpiece? And out of that company, who the fuck is more qualified than me to be his mouthpiece? The gimmick fits perfectly. And they talked about doing it. We started teasing it. Dusty came in. I had a couple meetings with Dusty. It was going to happen, and we had this new thing we were going to do. I was going to be change my look a little bit, like an evil carny guy, and it was going to be, the theme was going to be the origin of Abyss. He was some geek in a carnival or something. And I called Dusty like 8 weeks after that because he didn't return calls, and he was like, Devil number 2. You know, I call you Devil number 2 because Kevin Sullivan was the original Devil number 1, but after what you did to Raven's head, you probably are Devil number 1. I done told Kevin Sullivan that. But Devil number 2, what you need to know is you are not on the plate right now. You understand? I'm not trying to say it may never happen, but now you're not. And I was like, well, thank you for your candor, Dusty. You're the first person who's had the decency to call me and at least be honest. And that's where it sits. So I may be back. I may not. I don't know. But as soon as Dusty came in, and that kind of hurt my feelings. Not that me and Dusty Rhodes were big buddies, but just because, I was such a mark for him when I was a kid. And when he came in, I thought, yeah, Dusty knows how to get me over. He's made money with managers. He made all his money against managers' stables. Damn it, I'm going to the top. Dusty, we're going to make movies, baby. Nope. Dusty wasn't making any fucking movies with the devil.
And in closing, are there any other stories, road stories, prank stories, anything like that from any point in your career?
There's so many. and they all have something to do with sex. I mean, off the top of my head, there's too many. You'd almost have to cut the camera off and let me think about it for a minute. But trust me when I say I've been places with my cock you wouldn't go with a pistol.
In closing then, thank you very much.
All right, it's been a blast, guys.
We'll see you again. Thank you very much.
Take care. May all your stains be large ones.